I'm in a race with time. I put my life on the record, always giving it effort at night. I'm always restless, this music's a life sentence. Perfecting my craft in seconds, the essences of the herb used to make the world turn. People earn was not deserved, while the weak get knocked down. Got people losing their health, this evil's making me glad. I hope I make my father proud, devote my life to writing raps. I hope I'm on the right path, spending years of my life that I could never take back. I lost friends.
Welcome to Face Off. I'm your host, Chris Fritcher, and with me is Mike Cherub from Just a Millennial.
That's all I am.
Only on the Autotainment Network. So,
shameless plug.
So today I invited him to come on because everywhere you read out in the automotive business and actually just out in business in general is how to solicit more millennials into your company to actually come work at your company. And some of the articles to me are amazing because it's all about how to cater to millennials to come work for you. And I'm not talking about going out and catering to millennials as far as generating business. I'm talking about actually having them come work for you. So what better for this conversation is to have an actual millennial here. So thanks, Mike, for joining me. And,
no worries, bro.
So let's start with you first, okay? Why should businesses cater to millennials?
To me, that's a loaded question. I think businesses shouldn't just cater to one specific type of worker. My personal philosophy is, and I know that articles everywhere are saying how to bring millennials in, and I think what the big draw and why that's happening so much is, right now millennials make up 1/3 of the American workforce, and I know that number's set to grow even more in 2016. I think the reason that they post so many different ways why you should bring millennials in is, number one, many people are declaring us to be the most innovative generation in recent times. No, I mean, you can look back at every generation and everybody had these huge monumental steps in technology. I mean, we were born in technology and you have to wonder how much further can we take it, but technology changes every single day. And I think when you live in a technological world, if you embrace the technological natives, you can only take your business further. But to cater specifically to millennials, it seems like a loaded question. I don't think you should necessarily cater specifically to what I want, because something that I don't necessarily agree with is the concept of the customer's always right. The millennial's not always right. But I think one of the biggest things that millennials value more than anything is the fact that we are heard. We live in a generation where we can post something on social media and somebody will hear what we're saying. I mean, and we're the most heard generation, period. Now, that doesn't always make the best thing because there's a lot of stupidity that gets posted online, but we are the most heard generation, and that's one of the biggest things for us is we want to know that we're being heard and there's value, behind what we're saying. It's our opinions, but to an extent, just because it's somebody's opinion doesn't always mean it's wrong.
What do you say about the people in some of these articles that say that the millennial generation is the entitlement generation, that millennials as a whole think that they're entitled? Not everyone, but as a whole. So I mean, I know you personally, so I don't think you're one of those people walk around thinking you're entitled because I know you. But you obviously have gone to school with millennials. You've grown up. I mean, you obviously because you are a millennial. So speak to us a little bit about that.
There's a couple of negative connotations that I feel we have that
Do you think they're warranted?
Sometimes yes and no. I've made an example on our show, Just a Millennial, that when I played soccer for 14 years from the time that I was 5 years old, and every single year, yes, every single person got a trophy, and we are considered everybody gets a participation trophy. But I will tell you this, and I made the same example on there. You know what? I may have got a trophy, I may have kept it, but the ones that I kept on my shelf were the ones when I came in first place. Those trophies were great, but it's not like I'm displaying my 8th place. It reminds me of, if you've ever seen 21 Jump Street, it reminds me of Jonah Hill's, I think it's Jonah Hill's character, and his parents have the entire wall monumentalized to him, and it's like the 16th place participation medal. He didn't even finish the race or something like that. Like, somehow we got that connotation, and I don't understand it, because, I'm a very competitive person. But as far as
you said something and it kind of struck a chord with me, and I know this is an automotive show, but I think this has to go a lot with the mindset of millennials in the workplace in car dealerships also. But let's, on the sports thing for a minute, everybody participates, gets a trophy, this, that, and the other thing. Don't you think that that might be part of the reason, everyone getting a trophy is why you have such sore losers as millennials? Like you see football players now, and basketball players that don't cope well with losing. Maybe it's because they've grown up in a society in an era where they can't do no wrong, and they do get trophies for showing up.
We live in a society where part of we always heard is the other problem that comes with it is 90% of the comments when you post something online are people agreeing with you and saying, yeah, it's great. And ultimately that harbors this, you never learn to lose. I've lost plenty of times. I was 10 years old and we went to the state championship with my soccer team and we came in 4th place, and I remember losing. It was like 40 degrees that day. It was downpouring rain. I was sitting under a space blanket because we were having to be swapped out because none of us could run more than 20 minutes without dying of coughing up blood. It was insane, but somehow we made it into a culture where everybody's great. And I don't want to turn this into a society thing where we can sit here. Because, my own personal opinions think that it comes from the society. I saw an article last week where parents are upset because there's a school in, I believe it's Orlando or around the Orlando area, that they have too many rules. But they've had 2 kids go to detention in the first half of the year. But parents are upset because there's too many rules. And you're like, what do you want? And that boils down to society. I don't want to jump off onto that because that's a 2-hour-long show where you never even ask me a question. You don't even get a word in. I just sit here and ramble for 2 hours, and we definitely don't want that.
If only we had 2 hours.
I'm not that pretty to talk for 2 straight hours on video.
Well, now let's go back to the car dealership for a second. And, one of the things that I think millennials get tagged with too is, and this obviously isn't catered to you, but communication issues with personal communication issues in person.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do with the age that we live in as a whole, not just, I think millennials might get tagged with it more because they've grown up in it with tablets, the smartphones, all of the social networking, where lots of times that human connection is lost. And I think it actually somewhat translates into sales also in the automotive business.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of millennials are scared to go take an up or scared to, talk to person, and then when they do, it's kind of awkward. So what are your thoughts on that?
I would definitely agree to an extent on that. But to the same extent, I don't, because I am a millennial. I grew up, I'm also a video game nerd. I spent most of my high school life, if I wasn't at soccer practice, I was in front of my computer playing World of Warcraft. I spent most of my time in front of technology, but to the same extent, I think you would probably agree that I have the personality that I can strike a conversation with just about anybody. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of that is derived from, some of it's true, don't get me wrong. When you first, going out into the workplace and you go from being a high schooler or even being in college and you don't really have to associate with really anybody in person other than your professor, and all that's done online now, and you can sit there and spend all your days in front of technology, I think it's a learning curve. I think that you've never had to learn that other than, you go to Starbucks and there's a group of 6 people hanging out and nobody's actually talking to each other. They're texting each other.
Their phones.
But when you go to work and you have to be thrown into that experience, the same thing if you throw a salesman who's 40 years old who's never worked in car sales before, there's definitely going to be a learning curve, I think, for anybody that jumps into that avenue. But I agree. I really do think that sometimes we are too engulfed in our technology. There was a stat I heard the other day that the average person, this isn't even the millennial, the average person checks their phone 73 times a day. Not you're on your phone 73 minutes, you check your phone 73 times a day. And I sat there that day, I realized how many times.
I actually checked my phone.
I realized that day because I was thinking about it that night. I was watching TV with my wife on the couch, and I realized how many times I checked my phone. Not that I got a notification or anything, but I would go to check something on my phone really quick, put it back down. I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous.
Right.
It's crazy.
Well, I think one of the things that I've always had an issue, I love the car business, and one of the things I've always had an issue with is I never thought a car dealership had to stay open for so many hours and so many days out of the week to be successful. I've always thought that was something that just for some reason or another, in certain places in the country, as a car professional, we've kind of fallen in that trap. And as millennials start to get older, and more millennials move into professional careers, obviously the automotive industry is an attractive industry for millennials because the amount of money that's possible to be made.
Yeah.
And I think for car dealerships, that's also appealing to have millennials because they are tech savvy. They can market in avenues that maybe some of the older employees are not as open to or have the knowledge to.
Right.
So my question is this: knowing the work schedules of most car dealerships, is that a turnoff for millennials?
Absolutely. I know a good friend of mine actually works at a dealership in our area, and he told me he's working some days 9 to 9, 8 to 8. Basically, he's working 12-hour days with like a 30-minute break for lunch. Mm-hmm. And I literally looked at him and said, why? Like, there are two things to hit on in this category. Number one, something that's talked about a lot, is we value our time more than anything. Obviously, making money is great, but we don't want to waste our own time. There is, if you want to do a little research, because I won't go into the full details of it, but Rick Reichert actually allows for flexibility in scheduling with millennial workers. I was doing...
Is it just millennial workers?
Not, I think just in general, but he adopted that principle based on the millennials because they wanted to have that flexibility. There are days that even working where we work, I would actually love to work 5 o'clock at night till 3 o'clock in the morning. I won't take a lunch break, but I won't be here in the day. Sometimes, that's just the way I work, but I don't have that necessarily flexibility to do such a thing. And I think one of the other big things is, as we go into the technological age, IT professionals and things like that have been using remote, work for a long, long time to work on people's computers. And it's something that's actually being adopted. I think the stat was it's something like 67% of workers will be working somewhat remotely, I think, in the next 2 years. In some way, shape, or form, they'll be able to work remotely. And I think it's a crazy concept, but, especially in the automotive world, if you have millennials, or matter of fact, the biggest thing is this isn't just rules for millennials. This is, we're an outspoken generation. If we see things that we could probably change, that's what we're aiming for. Not to say that you suck. it's like, hey, we see a way that we could possibly make this better. So maybe you have a day for your salespeople where they do nothing but, CSI, they're calling old customers, they're lining up appointments for themselves to make calls. But that doesn't necessarily have to be done in the dealership. Sometimes when you go to work, you feel confined and you feel distracted because it's so easy to get distracted when you're at work. If I'm working at home, I can spend 6 hours doing 10 hours worth of work. For us, the other big thing is quality over quantity. Just because I spent 10 hours on a project that you saw and you see that I worked 10 hours on it doesn't mean it's any better than the project I spent 4 hours on. I think that's one of the biggest things is we definitely love quality over quantity. Somebody made the reference the other day, it's like, how many friends do you have in real life? And, I don't have a huge number of people that I consider friends, and somebody actually said, you prefer quantity over quality. I'm like, absolutely. The people that I'm friends with, they know me better than almost I know myself. And that's just the way we are.
Now, and I didn't want this to be a millennial bashing show. That's why me and you aren't like fighting.
You can try and bash anytime.
That's one of the things, the time aspect, I think, is one of the things that's good for the car business. And you're starting to see in certain dealerships across the country, you're starting to see that time, the scheduling changing. A lot of dealerships going to flex schedules. Yeah. Instead of that bell to bell, if you're working bell to bell type of thing. You're starting to see a lot of dealerships starting to go into flex schedules. I mean, for our livelihood, I'm on the phone with dealers all day long. And I've noticed that even dealing with general managers, lots of times the general managers are starting to take more time off. Mm-hmm. Not that they're not working; they're obviously working when they're there. But I think but part of that comes from the millennial generation. You're talking about they value their time.
Yeah, and like I said, it comes to quality over quantity. You don't have to spend 70 hours a week working. I mean, if you're in a situation where you just lost 2 managers, obviously, you're probably gonna have to make up a lot of ground, and it's gonna suck until you find somebody to come in and take that role. But to that same extent, you don't have to work that 70 hours a week to accomplish what you can in 35.
Well, I think one of the things when it comes to the time aspect in millennials, I think this really goes across the board, not just millennials, but as a whole. I think one of the things you have to look at is you look over the course of the automotive industry. How much talent has left the industry because they wanted that time with their family? Yeah. Like a lot of people have gone into the automotive industry and used as a stepping stone as in their professional career to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because they knew they were only going to be short time because of the fact that they weren't going to work 70 hours until they were 50 years old.
Yeah.
They just said, you know what, I'm going to work this for 5-6 years and use as a stepping stone in my career to move somewhere else. How much talent has been lost over the years because of scheduling and things like that? I think the industry needs to ask themselves.
I think it's a large amount of people who are good at it, and I know something that gets talked about a lot with millennials, and I think this really applies to a lot of people. And I'm not going to come on and bash other generations, and I keep coming back to this, but I almost feel like previous generations were almost the type of people, and it's not a bad thing, but if they didn't like something, they kind of kept it to themselves. They put their head down and they worked. And it's not a bad thing, but one of the biggest things is if we don't necessarily like something or we see something that could change, we'll say something. To answer that question, I think there's two things that millennials alone, we definitely crave. It's not so much that we want a boss. Obviously, we have bosses. Where I work, I have like 8 different bosses. At any point in time, I have to jump through a hoop if they say so. But I think one thing that we crave more than anything is leadership. And it ties into my second point is growth. Talk to your employees, find out, what they want to do. If your employee, is saying, hey, I started college in, 8 months and I plan on working here to save up some money, don't automatically dismiss them just because they're only going to be there for 8 months. Allow them to learn what they can, because maybe they go to school, realize school isn't for them, and they come back to work for you. Maybe that person, if they're a salesman, or if they're in the call center or they're taking over marketing in your dealership, find out, their interests. Get to know them on a personal level. Whether they're going to be there 6 months, 2 years, 10 years, find out how long they plan on being there. But they also, the biggest thing we crave is, knowing that there's growth opportunities. If I go into an industry and after 2 years, or a job just for that matter, and 2 years later, I'm sitting in the same point, I've been given a grand total of like 50-cent raise in over 2 years, and I'm going to come to the conclusion, there's no growth here. Why do I need to keep spending my time? Because 5 years from now, I might have an extra $1.50 an hour. And I know in sales, somebody that I work for, David Villa, says all the time, sales, you can make an infinite amount of money. But not everybody wants to work in sales. I definitely don't. I don't have the personality to work in sales. But I want to go into a job knowing that I have somewhere where I can potentially grow to. And if you don't allow growth, that's why I think we're losing a lot of young talent. Is our growth it's going away. If you don't let them know that they can grow into something else in the dealership, then why do they have a reason to stay?
Sure. Well, we're going to wind down here. The last thing I want to talk about before we sign off is, one of the things I think makes people in the automotive industry, and part of it, I think, is the time aspect of how much time you have to involve yourself in a dealership is a little bit of a turnoff for some millennials. But the one thing I want to address is one of the statistics I saw was that something like 68% of millennials that are in a job are constantly looking to change jobs, not positions, but change companies. 68% of them. And the staggering statistic that I saw was not that. The staggering statistic I saw was that 70-something% of HR managers view that as a turnoff when trying to hire millennials. In other words, it affects their decision to hire a millennial. Right. Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it has to do with transparency in companies. Especially at even bigger companies, smaller companies, when you get to know the company and you get to know the culture, that's one thing. Culture's big. If your culture sucks and after 2 years is the average turnover time right now for millennials, and it's definitely a turnoff. I've been at my job now, I'm literally at the cusp of 3 years, and I have no plans on going anywhere. But that's because I love the culture. I know that I have ability to grow and make more money and eventually be able to support my family on a standalone income. But I've also made my goals known to my leadership. I think it falls on both sides. I think there needs to be transparency on the leadership side. When you're hiring people, I think you need to be upfront and honest. I don't think hiring somebody needs to be a sales pitch. I think you need to be upfront and honest and say, this is what our expectations are of you. I don't want you to say, I want you to just come in here and sell cars. If that was the case, I could come in and sell 5 cars and call it a month. But that's not what you want. You need to define your expectations up front. And to the same point, millennials need to figure out who they are. The other problem with our society is I feel like we've grown up in a situation where everybody's like, oh, it's okay to wait to figure out what you want to do in life. And unfortunately, that's transitioned into the career market where we're going, oh, let me try out this career. Maybe this will work for me. And, a year in, we're like, wow, I really don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And I think that both of those aspects together are what's compiling those statistics. Like I said, if I go into a company and I have no idea that I can actually grow into a manager, a team lead, move into a different department, possibly make more money, if I'm not working in sales, is there a review schedule? And that's another point. I think I read an article similar to yours, and I think one of the biggest issues millennials had when they took a survey based on that stat was it was in upwards of 60% of the millennials they surveyed said that they were not happy with the review process, or there was no review process. Every few months, whether you take 5 or 10 minutes, and this isn't just the millennials, this is your employees in general, you should be sitting down, finding out where their goals are, finding out where they're at on the goals you set for them. You need, as a leader, to be a leader, not a boss. And I think that's something that as a whole is changing, and that is probably changing in a lot of business now, is not just, oh, I'm the boss, I tell you what to do. I think just in general, not even millennials, I think leadership is probably the biggest thing, is be a leader. Find out about your people. Make sure the people that are managing them are actually leaders. They're checking in with them. I think that's the biggest thing, is we want to know that we're being heard, but we also want to know what our expectations are. If I walk in and, my expectation is I need to sell 15 cars a month, great. I know what I need to aim for. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's a two-edged sword. I think it falls on everybody on that front.
Well, thanks for joining me, Mike. Mike Cherip, he's just a millennial, and you can catch his show right here at Autotainment Network with Michael Akendo. I'm Chris Fritcher. We'll see you next week right here on Face Off.
And I'll see you in about 3 minutes.
I'm in a race with time. I put my life on the record, always giving it effort at night. I'm always restless, this music's a life sentence. Perfecting my craft in seconds, the essences of the herb used to make the world turn. People earn was not deserved, while the weak get knocked down. Got people losing their health, this evil's making me mad. I hope I make my father proud, devote my life to writing raps. I hope I'm on the right path, spending years of my life that I could never take back. I lost friends.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Mikey Okindo.
And this is Michael Cherup.
And this is episode 2 of Just a Millennial. Intro right now.
Is it? Is it right? Is it doing that?
Well, that's the hype, you know. You get amped, and then everybody's like, oh, I'm into this, and then intro. Big music thing, and yeah.
In 3, 2, 1.
Hey, what's up, guys? We are back from our awesome intro, and so today we're going to be talking about millennials and your company culture, millennials in the workplace. We've got 3 big points that we want to hit on today. We're going to be talking about how to learn to let go of the need for specific outcomes, and how to motivate employees when they don't want to put the work in. That happens. And we're going to finally finish things off with the fact that culture comes from the top, including bad culture. That's bad.
That's a bad. That's a really bad. That's.
That was a really bad accent. I don't know what that was.
You know, that accent started in our office, like 8 months ago with Paul, and then it was like it just developed into I don't even know what anymore, and like we just do it for random stuff.
You know what it was from? It was from a guy. It was actually a YouTuber. You should check him out if you want to laugh a lot. His name is David So Comedy, and what was it? It was an episode about Fast and the Furious. So that's all you really need to know. Just check him out, and he's pretty funny.
Yeah, he is. He definitely is. Free plug for you there, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Free real estate.
Exactly. So let's kick things off. First topic, boom, get right into it. Learn to let go of the need for specific outcomes. And you're probably thinking, oh, wait a minute. The need for specific outcomes, that sounds a whole lot like, goals. That's kind of a big deal. That's important. Why would you let that go? So would you let that go? Why would you want to let that go?
It's not the goals part that we're getting at. It's when you have things in your daily routine that have to be achieved every day for you to consider it a success. I mean, work isn't a ritual. If it becomes a ritual, then you need to take a step back, because every day you should be kind of throwing something in there to throw, just to change things up. But you don't want a ritual for work unless, your job is, like ritual master for the Witchcraft Association of America, in which case your job is rituals and you should stick to it. And if you're watching this show, tweet us and let us know how you came across us, because I'm slightly interested in that.
Yeah, I'm actually curious to see, this is completely off topic, but it's whatever. I'm completely interested to see exactly how many people watch this show, and not just how many, but like who they are. I think that's really interesting, because I know that we're trying to appeal to an automotive audience, but at the same time, millennials is a topic that appeals to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And not just millennials, but really anyone in business. So I would be really curious, especially if you are non-automotive and you just happen to stumble upon this show. Love to hear from you. Just a completely free plug there. Tweet at us, Instagram us, whatever you do, Snapchat, I don't know. Just send us a message somehow. That'd be pretty cool.
At JAM_ATN, and we'll split from there. And what's funny is I'm actually fresh off a face-off. I'm actually getting double FaceTime this week on the network, which is pretty funny. I was invited to come do the first official face-off with Chris Fritcher, which is the show that comes before us. And he was looking for somebody that could argue with him. So if you missed that, Autotainmentnetwork.com, another shameless plug right here, go back and watch it, because he and I, my troll mode might have come into play a couple different times. One thing that's really important is everybody needs goals. Our CEO talks about it every single time. Write your goals down, make it plain. It's biblical. We can go into all that. But more specifically, it almost sounds like we're counteracting what we're trying to say in the first point. You should have daily goals. That's absolutely true. Your goals are something that you should strive to attain, especially if it's a daily goal. But if you don't meet that goal, it doesn't mean you failed. That's the biggest thing. I go into work, I don't know how many times a week, and I'll get there an hour early. I'll get some breakfast. I'll read a couple news articles, and I'll plan out my day. And working where I work, and some of you who actually know me personally know what my schedule is like, know that my day never goes as planned,
really?
Ever. But that doesn't mean I failed that day. Most of the time when it runs like that, I get 3 times the amount of work I had originally scheduled for myself knocked out. So if your need to achieve your goals every single day to that extent suddenly makes you a failure, you kind of need to drop the mentality, because you take that negativity and it can start to affect others, and they see, oh, well, I'm not reaching I'm not hitting my ritual. I'm not doing the same things. If you're working in sales, if you make a goal of, I need to make 100 calls today, and you don't meet that goal. But what if you don't make that goal because, you had 4 customers walk on the lot and that suddenly interrupted your call schedule, but you sold 2 cars. You didn't fail. You did not reach your goal. You literally made more money instead of making 100 calls. That's kind of what we're getting at, is don't let failure creep into your mind. God, I'm starting to sound like a motivational video.
Well, it's good though, because it's true. I mean, especially if you're a manager, because you are managing your individual salespeople, and if you have these very specific outcomes, which are good, because again, we're talking about goals. You need to set goals for your business. You need to set goals for your employees if you happen to be a business owner, manager, leader in some way, shape, or form. But it's really important to be flexible, because as Mike said, look, you can have success a plan is only as good as it is before it's actually put into practice. I mean, plans are great, but once you actually get the boots on the ground and things start happening, they never, I would love to speak to one person who's like, yeah, man, I wrote this plan up, and just start to finish, everything went exactly as planned. I even thought it was going to be sunny today, and it's sunny outside. It never happens. Never does that happen.
Really probably just a real world example that's not even work. Well, I guess it's work related for these people, but I mean, look at any major war, battle, fight that happens and takes place in a modern era with the army or the military. Oh my gosh, they go in with this most strategic plan. I could even reference, when they went to take out Osama bin Laden. Yes, it's a controversial topic whether he died.
But it's all based on data and analysis and real stuff.
All this planning, and all of a sudden, if you've seen the movie, they're sending their guys into a place they shouldn't be. It's perfectly executed, the fly in, and all of a sudden one of their choppers goes down. Nobody, the guys got off the chopper and they completed the mission, but they definitely weren't expecting that.
It doesn't matter. It just happens.
And these are some of the best military minds in the world that put this plan together, and something goes wrong. Something will always affect your plan.
And the best business minds too. It happens to them every single day. But you have to be able to be flexible. If you can't, especially as a manager, if you're talking about company culture, if you're talking about employee satisfaction and how happy people are to walk into work every day, if all you do is have these very specific outcomes, and when they don't hit them, you can't celebrate small victories in other areas, that's going to be problematic. That's going to create a really bad culture for people to live in. Millennials especially, we love feedback, whether it's good or bad. We love for you to be able to give us feedback, and we love to be able to celebrate corporately. We really are all about, community interaction. We both love that. I think millennials in general love that a lot. So
feedback is one of the most important things you can give to not just a millennial, but any coworker for that matter. I mean, I have my own YouTube channel. I'm not going to plug it, but I do my own videos. I do my own things, and it's really great when people leave me nice comments and they say nice things, and they'll send me messages, and it's awesome. Don't get me wrong.
If they say anything,
but the ones that I actually pay the most attention to are the ones that are criticizing constructively or just bashing me. Now, I'm able to spot whether somebody's just like trolling me. I'm a troll. I see a troll. But the people that come on and actually take the time to constructively criticize me, I take a lot of time to listen to what they say, because they're not just praising me for doing something right. They're saying, look, this is what I see that you could do that could have been done so much better. And that's what it comes to. And to the same extent, for those of you that are listening that aren't a manager, that are a quote unquote subordinate, if somebody comes to you, don't take criticism always. Don't be offended every single time somebody says something. It's not negative. Most of the time, if they're coming to you and care, they're coming to you because they see that you're doing something and they want to go, look, I want to help you. So if somebody's coming to you in that sense, don't immediately put your defenses up. Take time to listen to them because they took the time to come over and tell you. Now, if you're just like, Mikey, your hair sucks, bro.
that's not constructive.
That's not constructive. If I came up and say, Mikey, maybe you should, I'm just saying from my standpoint, if you styled your hair to the right instead of the left, you might flow a little better.
Right. You're just trying to help somebody.
That was a really poor example with hair.
Well, but the point, I think they get the point. The point is, if you have a lot of things going on a daily basis, which you do, and you have a lot of different goals, if you don't hit all of them, celebrate the victories you do have. Don't punish everyone just because one or two people didn't hit your goals. You still need to learn to celebrate. Companies that celebrate together grow together. Teams that celebrate together experience much more happiness. You get much better feedback. There are better relationships between managers and their team. It's just you create a much better environment that way. You have to be able to be real with people. Talk with them about, look, you didn't hit this goal, but at the same time, you have to roll with the punches and 1, acknowledge the good things, and 2, acknowledge, like Mike said, just because you get thrown off of one goal doesn't mean that maybe you somehow segued from that to accomplish something else really cool. Maybe you didn't make 100 cold calls. Great. What if you didn't make 100 cold calls because, if you're in a business that's doing that, you end up getting a customer on the phone, you work with them for an extended period of time, which of course limits the amount of calls you can make for the rest of the day.
That's true.
But you end up turning those customers into actual buyers. Does that mean that you failed because you didn't make those 100 cold calls? I don't think so. And as a manager, you have to take a closer look at exactly what your people are doing beyond the numbers. Because if you don't, you're going to accidentally probably encourage bad behavior or discourage good behavior, whichever way you want to look at it. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Just phrased it differently.
And this is kind of leading into what we said was going to be the third point, but I think we should probably jump into the second one, because I think the one that we originally had second will probably go better after the third when we kind of get into it, is company culture. Culture, no matter what, starts from the top and heads down. I know it's such a cliche in business and in everything, because everybody says it comes from the head down. Yes, to an extent that is true, absolutely, but culture truly, I mean, if you are an owner or if you are a manager, you need to decide whether it's over your entire facility or over your department that you want to have a specific culture. That in and of itself, I think, is more important than ever. With our company, we have a very open culture. Now, are there times that the sales team gets rowdy, or the BDC's yelling, or somebody's yelling across the office, and it kind of gets annoying? Absolutely, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I love the culture that we have. It's open. There's always energy. There's always people up and moving. It's not just like this stagnant call center where everybody's sitting at their cubicle 8 hours a day, 30 minutes for lunch, and everybody sits in the break room and doesn't speak to each other. I mean, you could almost consider every single person in that office a family member to an extent, because you get to know them so well just working.
Yeah, and how it's a successful culture is when not only, yes, as he said, it does start from the top. Everyone understands that. That's established. If you disagree, please do send a message to us. We'd love to hear why. But from what we're operating on the assumption that we believe culture starts from the top. But what really makes a culture successful, I think, is when you find that your individual people, like he said, the people on the ground, the people who aren't managers, who are just regular employees, are actually the ones that willingly choose to drive your culture for you. Now, when I say drive, I don't mean dictate. You're still telling them exactly what you want to do. You're still the business owner. But what I mean by that is you don't have to go to somebody at your business, when you don't have to go to them and tell them that something that's a part of your culture. If you believe heavily in transparency and you believe in disclosing certain things or being very real in meetings, or if you believe that meetings should be very short, no longer than 15 minutes, and it's just an established thing, whatever it is that you do that's very specific and unique to you, when you find people doing that of their own free will, wanting to do it, they enjoy doing it, they not only love coming to work, but they actually love your day-to-day processes and the things that you do that make you unique, you have a pretty darn successful culture at that point. And if you find you have to force people to do stuff, you could just blame them. You could just say, they're just stubborn, they just don't want to listen to me. Or you could look at yourself and say, look, I'm the business owner. I literally make the rules of the game. I can't complain when people don't do what I want them to do, or complain about an outcome, because that would be like the makers of Monopoly being like, man, this sucks. I hate that you have to go to jail. Like, you made the game. You can at any point just change the rules and be like, you know what? No jail anymore. No jail. No jail. Like, you absolutely cannot complain, because if you're a business owner, you can change the rules at any point. So if you do find that people are, not wanting to do what you ask them, if you feel that people aren't really conforming to your culture, one, that's on you. And two, if in fact they are conforming to it, they love it, then that's when you're a success. If you're trying to measure when you're a success.
And there's two key things I want to hit really quick before we jump to our third, quote unquote subtopic. Number one, creating a good culture. Something that I definitely recommend is, something that Mikey hit on earlier, is celebrate the small victories. If you hit a monthly goal, obviously everybody's happy about that, but celebrate the small things. Now,
every day.
But and this is something that I hate that's talked about millennials, because it drives me nuts, because I definitely didn't. I don't know how we got this rap. I'm not by any means saying everybody gets a participation trophy.
Oh, no.
Somehow we got pegged with, we grew up where everybody got a participation trophy.
Well,
I can tell you this.
That's bullcrap.
I played soccer for 14 years, and I remember every single year I won first place with my team. And I remember every single year that I got that stupid bloody trophy that you got, just because it was like, everybody gets one. Yes, everybody got one, but you know what the great thing was? If you came in first, you got first. If you came in second, you got second. If you came in third, you got third.
And your trophy
everybody
was
got
huge.
a trophy, but the trophies that were huge were the ones that you wanted.
Yes.
And you knew who those kids were.
They were like the muscular,
create a culture where you're accepting of those little celebrations. If you're managing a sales team at a dealership, and let's just say that your monthly goal is you guys want to sell 100 units across, between however many. I don't know what's a big number for people.
5,000. 5,000 cars in 1 month.
It's over 9,000? Is it over 9,000?
Yeah.
It's over 9,000!
Yeah, that's a realistic goal. Either one of those.
But, if you set a daily goal, you guys do your sales meeting in the morning, you guys say, look, we need to sell 20 cars today. And let's say come 6:30, you sell your 20th car. And actually, for that matter, you got 2 more people in finance, and as soon as they put the ink on the paper, that's 22 for the day. You guys aren't set to necessarily close for the next hour, but maybe take them out. I'm not saying buy every single person dinner, but buy somebody a drink. Take everybody to go get ice cream. I know it sounds really dumb because, we're adults and say, oh, go get ice cream. I can't tell you how excited I get when my wife's like, let's go to Cold Stone. I'm like, yes, let's go. Well, I'm actually dieting right now, so when she says let's go to Cold Stone, I generally cry because
it's frustrating.
Because I can't have it, and it's like. But the second point, not to cut you off.
Well, at the very least, even if you don't take people to Cold Stone, like if you sell 20 cars, whatever your goal is, in that day, assuming you have a daily goal, which you should. Why not celebrate every single deal? Like, I know that sounds simple, and I'm sure there are a lot of dealerships who do that. So by no means am I trying to say, or are we trying to say that you guys aren't celebrating. I'm sure that we know that there are a lot of you who do. We speak to a lot of you. We know that. But we also know there are a lot who may not. Every single car you sell, like, you don't have to get somebody something, but just like what we do at the office. I mean, it's phenomenal. Every time you see a sale go through, people are high-fiving, people are excited, there's music that goes off, we've got a whole digital board that tracks sales and updates with, fireworks that go off on the screen because we have TV screens that track it. Like, it's just fun, you just have fun, and it's every single sale. Like, I know this is just sales related. You're going to have to do other things for marketing. We can't tell you what to do for every one of them. But if we're just talking about sales, that's a very simple example. That's something we do at the office every single day with a very simple piece of software. And if you have a TV and a computer, you can do it as well.
Absolutely.
Just have some fun with it, and you'd be surprised the kind of ROI you would get from having a team that really gets excited about some sales and really can build momentum off of that.
And that's another little side point is, and it kind of, both of these kind of tie in together. Number one is make sure that, your team culture is about the team and not about the lone wolf. This isn't Zach Galifianakis where he was the lone wolf in the one-man wolf pack that suddenly became 4. This isn't that. Well, to an extent it kind of is. But you need, in my second point that I really wanted to hit on was, as much as it sucks to say this, sometimes you need to deal with toxicity in a very direct manner.
Oh, sure.
You know, if you find somebody in your company that's toxic, I can't even begin to tell you how quickly that toxicity will grow from one person to two, from 2 to 5, from 5 to 10, and suddenly you have those few that are absolutely loyal to you to death, and then everybody else is talking. And you know, I've seen it firsthand.
They poison the rest.
It's that's all it is, and I've seen it firsthand. You know, where I work. Much time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But I was actually, I realized, you know, I had actually become part of that toxic. It had spread to me. And I realized one day I was sitting here and I'm going, wow, how did I ever get to this point?
You didn't even want to be there.
I didn't want to be there, and I never even realized I got there. And most of the time you don't realize it until it's too late. But and the most effective manner, number one, is if you find a toxic person, you need to find out what they're toxic about. You know, as you know, gamers call it online, what are you salty about? Why are you being salty? But if it ever comes to a point where you're having to have this conversation 2 and 3 times, cut the dead branch. Get it out.
It's way less painful.
It's much less painful dealing with that than all of a sudden having an uprising of 5 employees leaving at the same time because you didn't make them happy one day.
Or just having to fight with one person who like is battling your insistence to do, you know, you're trying to set your company culture. You're trying to put positivity out there. You're trying to make this a great place to work. And then you have this one person, this Sauron, this Voldemort of sorts that you have to fight against every single day. And we all know what you do with Voldemort. You get rid of him. You confront him. You get your wand out. You do the little battle.
Which book do you want it to be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7? 7, he gets rid of him.
Yes.
Oh, spoiler alert! Shoot.
If someone is watching this and hasn't seen Harry Potter,
You know what? It's not even a spoiler alert anymore.
The last movie came out when?
Oh God!
Several years ago. It's on you if you haven't seen that.
I almost cried. My wife laughed at me while she was my fiance. Actually, she may not have been my fiance just yet, but I was like, "This is the end of my childhood." We walked in the theater to see the last movie, and that kind of leads into, you know, the company culture as a whole. Definitely leads into the final point, which is how do you motivate employees that aren't willing to put in the work?
Which does happen.
I can tell you one thing, you know. Those little celebrations are motivation, especially in a sales team and a marketing team where you guys are pushing for a goal. That little bit of satisfaction, you know,
and recognition.
And recognition it's that quote unquote 5 minutes of fame that you really, you know, everybody craves. Let's just be honest. Everybody wants to be on camera. Everybody wants to be on film.
Sure.
Let's be honest. But most of the time, none of us can handle the lifestyle. But I think definitely if you started doing things like that, it would definitely improve morale with some of your employees that, you know, can do the work but don't necessarily want to.
And the key to understand with these kind of people is we're really trying to differentiate so you understand. We talked about people who could be toxic in your company culture. This is completely different. If somebody, and you might think like, okay, somebody who's toxic versus somebody who wants to not put in the work, that's one and the same. They can be, but it's really important to distinguish because there are some people who may not want to put in the work in your organization, and it may not be because they're toxic, and it may not be because they're a bad person or they have a bad attitude. It could honestly just be because they're demotivated. It could really be because you haven't taken the time to get to know them, to understand them, to listen to them, all things hugely important to millennials. And maybe it's just time for you to, and I'm sure you've done this already, to identify that person, who that person is, or that group of people, and sit down one-on-one, talk with them, and listen. Don't just like sit down and be the typical office space manager who says, okay, so what exactly do you do here? And then you just sort of, you know, like badger them about what they can do better. That's fine. You have to be able to have goals and expectations, but listen to them as well. Try to get them to be real with you. Ask them questions that open themselves up as a person and make them want to be honest and truthful. Not the bullcrap kind of answers that you get from people when you're like, hey, so, you know, talk to me about how you've been feeling here. Have you been enjoying work? Oh, yeah, work's been good. You know, it's been fine. I've had a few issues with Shelly from accounting, but, you know, like that's a bullcrap answer. Every time you ask somebody that, they're going to give you the same thing. Oh, yeah, it's been good. Yeah, it's really great. Culture's really good. No. Try to ask them questions to get at the core of who they are. Where do they want to be in 5 years? Why are they working here? Do they want to continue to work here? And be honest with them. Say, look, I want you to not give me any bullcrap. I want you to give me the real deal. Tell me what you really think. I'm not going to fire you if you tell me, no, I really don't want to work here for the rest of my life. I'm just kind of here in between jobs. If that's the truth, just tell me that. You should be so transparent with your employees that you want them to tell you that.
Absolutely.
Because that's what you get at the crux of things. That's how you get down to figure out why is somebody like this. Oh, they're like this. They're not motivated because they don't really want to be here long term. Or, you know what? They wanted to be here long term, but then they they didn't see a career path. They didn't see anywhere for them to go. So they kind of got demotivated and they felt like they were constantly being just pushed to the side and not recognized, as you said.
Yeah.
You have to recognize them. And so because of that, they no longer felt like it was worth their time to put in above and beyond the effort needed to just do the basic job. So if you get at that and you figure out, oh, that's why, then that's something you can fix. That's something you can address and say, okay, I'm going to do my best as the manager, as an owner, to make you feel important, to make you feel like, you know what, this is a business worth putting your time into. And if they say, no, I just don't really want to work in this industry, you know, you can work with that too. If you feel like you want to cut ties because of that, if you feel like you want to maybe just try to convince them why your industry is good. I mean, there are different avenues you can go down. You can choose that yourself. But the point is, get at the truth. Get at why they're not working the way that they should. Figure that out before you just decide to cut ties with them, at least.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I keep looking at my watch because we are out of time. You know, I swear, this time seriously flies by. Like, you start talking, and I'm like, my wrist is vibrating. I'm like, what? We're done already? So,
that's it.
You know, in retrospect, one of the biggest things is build a great culture. You know, everything we talked about all stems from having a good culture. You know, if you something that Lisa Copeland, who's one of the biggest Fiat dealers in America, who I've actually had a couple of different chances, not even on Auto Deal Live or any other thing that I do at work, just like I was able to actually talk with her one-on-one, and something that she talked about in the workshop was she does employee surveys, I think once every month or every 2 months.
Really?
And if she's watching and she wants to correct me, send me a text. You got my number. But she does that and she finds out where her people stand, and it's anonymous. You know, you don't put your name on it, so she can't necessarily know who's saying this, but you can be honest, and at that point she can address the things that aren't going well. And that's definitely something that anybody can incorporate into their business model. You know, 5-question survey, type out a question, put in 6 spaces, type another one, 6 spaces, you know, whatever. And you send it out in an email, you tell everybody, I want you to print this out, fill it out, give it to, don't even make him give it to you, give it to somebody that, you know, as a company they would trust.
Right.
Let them be the one to read through and give you the feedback. And at that point, you can start addressing things that aren't working well. But now we got to wrap it up. So on the screen now is our Twitter and Instagram handle. It is at JAM_ATN. That stands for Autotainment Network, which is where you are right now watching this show. Unless you somehow stumbled across our YouTube live link, in which case go to autotainmentnetwork.com. That's also on the screen right now. And I'll let Mikey finish the wrap up.
That's right. That's pretty much it. All I've got to say is, look, this is a show we want to make driven by you, the viewer. So please do, I know that we're starting things off and this is fresh and new, but please watch our previous episodes and tweet in, Facebook comment in, Instagram, Snapchat, do whatever you want to do, but get a hold of us, get in touch with us, email us, and call us if you want to. Send us some questions, send us some thoughts, ideas, whatever you have, for things that you want to hear us talk about on future shows. If you have a specific question you would like us to answer on air, feel free. Tweet at us. That's the best way to reach us. Use hashtag JAM, just a millennial.
Yep.
Pretty cool. That was his idea. It was very, very cool.
Jam session.
And just send us a question. We would love to get not just feedback from you, but be able to actually answer your question and, you know, get it. Well, should I get rid of the stash? Should I keep it? Should I just go with a beard? I don't know.
You know what? Twitter poll going up at the end of this segment. Should Mikey keep the stash? Make sure you vote. We're gonna keep it open for 3 days. Make sure you vote on that Twitter poll.
I really do, whichever one you guys say. Honestly, for real, I would. If you don't like it, I'll next episode you'll see.
Yeah, you'll find out.
But, at least the one after that. One of the coming soon. I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it.
And you stay tuned, guys, because coming up next is Who's Your Danny? Danny Benitez, one of the funniest guys ever. On that note, I'm Mike Cherub.
And this is Mikey Okendo.
We out.
Signing off. Till next time.
Audio Jungle.
Hi, and welcome to episode 2 of the Who's Your Danny Show. Staying true to my weirdness pledge, I had a 2-hour conversation with the incomparable Robert Wiseman. Now, Robert's the co-producer of the Dealer Playbook. He works with Flex Dealer, and he consults with sales professionals all over the country about personal branding and other things. Robert owned his first business at age 18, and he's bought and sold businesses ever since, eventually landing him in the car business about 5.5 years ago. His innovative video strategies has made him the enemy of his competition and kind of a search engine superstar. Several of his walk-around videos have over 100,000 views, and these are videos that were done back in 2012. They're still on the front page of Google. And the Dealer Playbook, the podcast, has over 50,000 monthly listeners in over 55 countries. Like I said, Robert and I talked for quite a while, so we're going to squeeze 2 hours worth of conversation into about 25 minutes of highlights. So sit back and enjoy. And if you want to see the full-length version, go to Autotainmentnetwork.com here in a day or two, and we'll have it downloaded. But sit back and you'll see some of the highlights and see just how weird Robert Wiseman is. One of the things that I remember when I first saw you, and you were actually presenting, or at least you were being used as an example by the presenter.
It's being used.
And you put, or they typed in the Google search, I think it was whatever town you were from.
Honda, no, it wasn't a town. It's Honda. Now that one.
Honda Accord, Maryland.
Yeah, it was 2013. It was the year. It was, so 2013. It was 2013 Honda Accord or the Honda Civic MD, Maryland or Maryland. I was the first organic on both of them. Both of those videos are close to 100,000 views.
Here's the best part is he wasn't at a Honda store. Right.
It worked. And that's the thing, is because even still today, at that time, like the only reason that, and I say this a million times, the only reason anything that I did went over and worked, especially when it came to video then, is because I was just, I'm not saying like I'm a genius and innovator, but I was an early adopter in this business to that. Right. And that's why that stuff would work, because there wasn't other people to compare it to. Right. So still today, these salespeople out in these markets, they do video produce it, make it, what you're saying it's going to be, what you title it as, and what it's going to be, and do things like that, you will rank, because the other person and the other dealer, chances are they're not doing it.
Right.
And it's a way for you to stick out in the market and take advantage of what people don't want to do. Nobody's comfortable on camera. Nobody's pumped up and be like, yeah, video, let's do one. Right. Nobody's excited about that. But it's just the fundamentals of, we know it's to be successful, you just got to do what the other guy is not, right?
Right. In every facet. And you stepped out there and did something that really no one was doing at that time. And really, you look today, it's not really that much better. I'm shocked that we're 2 years, almost 3 years downwind, and that my pages aren't flooded with this, because it works and it's a way to brand yourself. Whenever you're doing these videos, I want to skip to something else real quick. I want to talk about the content of these videos, not necessarily the quality. We'll get to that. But so when you first started, what was the concept behind your videos? What were you putting together? I know we see these. There were walk-arounds, and was it different models, individual cars?
Baloney. This is what I go back to being an early adopter. You want to learn everything not to do, go look at my early YouTube channels. But again, I went 150 plus days of publishing a video on YouTube every day.
Okay. So you put
so that
volume
was big.
of content out there.
Yes. And that today, it's not that, that's the exact opposite of what your strategy should be today. It should be quality, not quantity. Here's the thing. So when it comes to video, the majority of everybody and what they talk about and talking about using video is they're using it as the communication tool, another form of communication. Elise, our friend Elise, does, and things like that.
Which is effective.
Well, my friend.
It's effective. Yeah, it's good communication.
Which is totally effective. I would never tell anybody not to do that.
Right.
But the crazy part is that's the least valuable part of video when it comes down to it. That's not even tapping into the full potential of video. So
you're talking about search, video, though. You're talking about search.
It comes from YouTube.
Search. Okay.
Yes, it comes from YouTube.
So they want to do video, and they want to start this brand and get noticed. And what you're talking about is search. Videos you can do to be available to them and to start pushing your brand out.
Is
there.
YouTube, which all ties back to using YouTube, right?
Okay. All right.
And YouTube is, I'm not going to go on all the stupid stuff. Everybody knows it's owned by Google. It's a huge search engine, blase, blase. Right. We all know that Google will rank a video faster than anything else if it's right. So what you want to do is, and again, using the walk around. Here's the 2016, first off, don't say walk around in your, I never knew what a walk around was until I got into the car business.
Yeah, that's dealer talk.
Lose the jargon. Think like a customer. Our mutual friend, who we've had some great times with, Mark Tewart.
Yeah, TLC.
One of his greatest things. Yep, TLC. Think like a customer.
Yeah.
And that's one of the something so simple and obvious is one of the most powerful things out there.
Right.
Is think like a customer. Think like you are a customer.
Right.
We first off, we have such a tendency, not a tendency, we do. We separate things in automotive, there's marketing, but automotive marketing.
Right.
It's all one. Marketing is marketing. People are people. There's no difference. Listen, the people that buy cars, they buy everything else way more than they buy cars.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So stop thinking like it's different.
Yeah.
No, you appeal to the same people. You don't use words like that. Walk around and not using your name in the description, because no one's searching your name.
Right. Right.
It's a fact.
Right.
But the again, back to doing the 2016 make and model review and walk around. That's good. That's better than doing nothing. But that's work that you're doing that's not going to last you forever. Now, what I'm about is doing that video that it's what we call evergreen, where you do it one time and it's going to keep paying you back forever. Meaning things that your target client, your target marketplace, your target audience is searching on a regular basis.
Right.
So if they're searching things like, what's the warranty on a BMW? All right. Now, if you go in and you're local, okay, so if this person is in your marketplace searching this, you're geographically near them. You geotag your video the right way, which is just a feature in YouTube.
Right.
And, you know, they don't have to go in and type your city and state for that to come up, right? Like Google's goal, and Google is, and their goal is to be the best search engine in the world, right?
Sure.
Well, to be the best search engine in the world, they need to return the best search results for that individual search I guess you want to call them.
Sure.
They do that by putting the best content in front of them, right?
Right.
So all you need to do is you go in there and just answer the questions essentially that are more like evergreen's kind of like a jargon term, I guess you want to say, but something that people are always going to ask.
It's timeless.
Yes, something that's timeless. Something that's like if I was selling cars right now, I'd be doing things about like the experience, you know, like what happens in this office back here, you know, what do I do if I totaled my car?
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
How do I adjust like maintenance and things like that? That's a no-brainer. That stuff doesn't change a lot for a lot of vehicles, things like that. And people searching like gas mileage, like that's something everybody misses. And people say, what's the gas mileage on a Toyota Prius? If somebody's asking you it in person, listen, again, I've been there on the front line. What we do, the one thing we do as salespeople in the automotive industry is answer questions.
Sure.
All day, every day, whether it be via text, via phone call, via email, via face-to-face in the showroom. We're answering questions all day long. If they're asking you it via any of those vehicles that I just told, you know, those channels I just told you about,
They're searching
you better believe they're searching it.
Okay.
Then also go back to your service drive. Hang out there. You should be hanging out there anyway, because I would always hang out back there. But talk to those guys, shadow them, and hear the questions they're being asked.
Okay.
Their phones are ringing all day long. They're not people scheduling appointments. You know, people have questions about this and that. Warranty. What's the warranty on this? What's this? What do I do if this happens? What do I do if that happens? Like that stuff. If they're calling in today, 9 times out of 10, maybe not that individual is searching, but somebody is searching.
So step one for the salesperson is to get out a notepad, write it down, and start coming up with content subjects and get together 3 or 4 of them to begin with. I mean, I'm really talking about the first thing.
They ask, you answer.
Right.
That's the strategy.
Right. But I'm saying the salesperson that's listening right now, they're saying, okay, I want to get into this. And I've just been doing these walk arounds and all this, but now I need to get into the real brass tacks of what people are asking. You know, you talked about BMW warranty. So it's 3 things you need to know about a BMW warranty.
Yes.
And then you
every
have a video. Okay.
Yes. The content should always be like, I like to stick to the one problem, one solution.
Okay.
Thing, you know, like don't go into something generic like the 2016 Chevy Silverado.
Right. You're going to get buried.
Like, you're going to do it on a new make and model. It's 3 reasons why you should buy the 2016, or you know, the best 3 new features on the 2016 Chevy Silverado. If you want to do make and model type things, the 5 reasons why you should buy Chevy over Ford. All right, so I'm going to go into like, this is the biggest tip. And this comes from like why I did video and everything. And this is for that person listening in, is that look at what everybody else is doing and just do what they're not, or do something different. And nobody was doing that.
Right.
You know, and this is before that. So I started using that in the worst way possible.
Right.
And I go back and I look at all my videos, and and I laugh, and I'm like, oh my God, they're the worst. Wow, this is so bad. What am I gonna do with this? But then I heard a comment from Seth Godin, who's one of my favorite, professional marketers and entrepreneurs out there. And he made a comment that said, if you don't look back at your first version of something or your first go at it, and you're not completely humiliated, you waited too long to do it.
Wow.
Right?
Right.
Because you wanted to perfect it. You wanted to do this and that. Your first version of something should be humiliating.
Right.
When you look back after you've become seasoned, right?
Absolutely.
Become a seasoned vet. And that's what I looked at. I was like, nobody else is doing this, and I'm gonna do it. Right. Everything that I did when it comes to that, like video and YouTube in that day, except I was able to, I learned from someone that to show me how to get these videos on YouTube in front of people.
Right.
It became very, very, very effective. It's like, all right, so now I know I just need to put every video I put out, it'll rank. If I do it right, I put it in for the keywords that I think that people would be searching, things that people would be looking for.
Right.
And if I'm up in there, if I'm there in Google, the top thing, they click me, boom, maybe they'll click on the link. I had no good, strong call to actions. I had poor quality video, but at the time was probably subpar. And these videos still rank. Dude, I still get leads today from that stuff.
Let's talk about personal websites just for a second. Having their own personal website. And those of you that are listening, there are some dealerships that, don't want their people to do it. We don't want anybody to get in trouble. So if you have a policy there where you can't do that, that's fine. But I'm at a dealership that is, I'm a salesperson with some open-minded people here. I want to create my own website and brand myself inside my dealership. Give me some do's and don'ts on doing a personal website, me as a car salesperson.
Okay, very good. Thank you. This is a great question. First off, don't try to DIY it unless you've done this professionally before, unless you've sold your services to a business that does this. Don't try to be Superman. Stay away from hiring friends. There's such a difference between web design and then online marketing. Right. And that's where I think people get, especially in this business. God forbid you're in a dealership and you let somebody know you know something about how to hook up a computer. Tomorrow you're the internet manager. So the first is don't try to do it alone.
Hire a professional.
Hire a professional, because and next is don't think you need the inventory feed or you need inventory because your website is never. Same with a dealership. A website today, until I can add to cart a car, and that's going to be the regular, thing that the user is accustomed to, you don't try to sell cars. You don't need inventory on there. You are not selling cars with this website. You are selling you.
Why do I want
you?
What's that website supposed to do for me as a car salesman?
It's selling you. It's building your credibility in the marketplace. First off, here's a simple thing. And everybody looks at it as an inbound lead thing. Well, listen, that's one way that it can benefit you. But another way is something as simple as this. Hey, Mr. Benitez, listen, I really hope this is the customer leaving that hasn't inked up. It happens to the best closers in the world. You can't sell everybody on the first take, right? So, hey, listen, Mr. Benitez, I really, really hope, I would love the opportunity to earn your business. Listen, when you get home or on your time, whenever, please check out robertwiseman.com. That way you can learn even more about me, the services I provide, and also what other people in your community have to say about their experiences with me.
Okay.
Well, first off, nobody else is telling them that.
Right.
So instantly I'm different.
Okay.
Right. Next is the fact that you have to take a website and make it more than an online business card and brochure.
Sure.
Right? Because that's the majority of what people's websites are. And that's just like, they feel like they're checking something. I got a brand. I have a website. No, you have an online business card or brochure.
Right.
It needs to become a resource for your target client, your ideal client. The way you do that is by consistent updates of content that is useful. Nobody wants to hear about your sale. No one wants to hear about the new promos that are coming out. Nobody wants to hear about you, because the bottom line is this, and sometimes this is hard to stomach, but nobody gives a crap about you.
Right.
Nobody gives a crap about your product.
Right.
They only give a crap about themselves.
Right.
So either embrace that or stop. So you have to give value. It's the same way with the video strategy as you do that on your website with embedding those videos through a blog. You need to create content that if people are searching it, that Google's going to rank you, because to get ranked by Google, you don't have to have the most views, the most subscribers, the most, likes from YouTube or from your blog, whatever. Is you just have to provide the best quality answer to that question. Because think about Google. When we go to Google, what do? We ask it questions, right? 90% of all transactions, including relationships, start there.
Right. So go ahead.
You have to answer the questions. Then you need to, first off, mobile responsive.
Right.
Everything, just think mobile. Forget what it looks like on desktop. All mobile. Needs to be fluent across all screens.
Okay.
Next is it needs to not be about you. It needs to be about the customer. Everybody thinks the about page should be about them. No, the about page is about the end user, right? It's about what your website is about and why it benefits them.
I think really, not to interrupt you, but what you're saying is about what you said that I like the best is credibility. Is that when people see, and like Mike Davenport, he's a rock star. And when people see that they have a website, it just says, I'm invested in what I'm doing. I take pride in it.
I'm not going to be gone tomorrow.
And don't just believe me. Here are people, here are reviews, here's what people are saying about me. Here is some good information about how to change your oil or things to not do when you go on vacation.
Shows your commitment that you're not fly by night.
Right. And that is the
you're
best
different
thing for
from
me.
everybody else.
Right.
The name of the game is to be different.
Right.
That's the way to do it. Another thing is check this out. So another client that I work with, that a salesperson that we've helped him out a lot with his website, his web strategy, and he's invested a lot of money and he does a great job of continuously creating content. Called me up the other day, all pumped up. Other day, I mean, this is a month or so back, to be honest. And he's all pumped up and he's telling me about, man, sorry, I haven't been able to keep up with my blog, because those guys, like, I ride them about, like, you have to continuously create content. If you have it in you, unless you're going to pay me and our team to do this, you're going to have to do it. Here's the playbook on how to do it. He's like, I'm sorry, I've been a little behind on my blog. I've been so damn busy, selling cars. I'm like, oh, awesome, man. So the website's working for you, right? He said, Robert, I'll be straight up with you. I don't think I've generated one lead from my website. I'm like, what? Why are you calling me all fired up? He said, no, I've consistently produced content for it. And what I do is I distribute those links to that content to my current prospects and people I'm working with.
Right.
And I said, wow.
Yeah.
Like, everybody looks at it as an inbound opportunity, but you can still use it in an outbound opportunity where, like, think of it's a whole, it broadened my thoughts to a whole other horizon of, all right, well, frequently asked questions, things like that, things that I deal with internet leads. Boom, I'm going to do it one time, blog it, then send the link to everybody that's on, that's asking those same questions or facing that same barrier or questioning me the same way or wondering who I am, what I do. And then he's using that. He's sending it, putting people to, sending people towards it, leveraging it in that aspect. Like I always looked at it as the inbound opportunity, right? That's what everybody wants. They want leads.
Right.
People think that they can just put up a website and boom, website.
Right.
You as a dealer, like you know that your website doesn't sell cars.
Sure.
A website is a website is a website. I don't care what provider you have. I don't care if Zuckerberg himself, or I don't know of any like famous web designers, you know, but like whoever designed it, it's not about that. It's about how you leverage it, what you do with it from there. And like he was leveraging it to a way that it was, you know, build. And I think about that and it's like, wow, you know, it's an instant way to be different, and it's an instant way for people to remember you, and it's an instant thing that's like, all right, he's giving me value.
Right.
And
So
the way we think is, you give me something, I'm going to be more inclined to give you something back.
that's really the crux of content. You're giving people things, you're giving them information, you're becoming an authority. And so when they decide to buy, then they want to return to that place.
Yes. And the
where it
best
originated.
part is, though, Danny, which people don't think about, especially when it comes to content and answering these questions, you do it one time, you put it online, it's there forever. It becomes this is what Michael Cirilla's dad, Joe Giuseppe, always says. It's the website is the salesperson that never sleeps. And that's what it becomes, because it's working for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because people are online searching, doing this. So it becomes your team. That's like same with video. The more of these content, every piece of content you publish becomes an asset. If it's the right piece of content that's going to work for you like a bat out of hell. You know what I mean? While you're sleeping, while you're selling other people, while you're, you know, out and about, whatever, it's working for you. And that's where, you know, a lot of people don't get. A lot of people are like, yeah, I'm not a writer, this and that. I'm like, listen, everybody is more of a writer than me.
Right.
And I write and I publish constantly.
Right. It's the spinning plates. You get the plate spinning. Really, you just have to keep it going, and you continue to let this content build on each other. So you have this evergreen content. You continue to add, and as you add, it's not just what you're adding. These ones that you did, you know, 3 months, 5 months ago, a year ago, they're continuing to generate, and it really just has a snowball effect.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying.
And it's be there, yes, and it's there. It's like, okay, so everybody judges like analytics and stuff like that. Like, dude, I don't do analytics.
Yeah, me neither.
Like, because either way, the response you get back from analytics will never be good, and I'll tell you why. If your analytics are poor, meaning the traffic, the response to what you're doing is poor, is bad, it's going to adjust the way that you perform and the way you execute. If it's great, it's going to adjust the way you perform and the way you execute, right?
Right.
So you stay away from that. You produce it for when that person needs it, it's there.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
the right person finds it because it's free. It's not costing you anything to do it unless you're paying somebody to do it.
Okay, so here we go. Let's put this into terms. So what you're saying is spend the time that you were going to spend pilfering through all the analytics, creating more content, and forget about the analytics. So
Or
I'm going to
doing
go spend
anything
30
else.
minutes. I'm going to go spend 30 minutes or an hour going through all these analytics. Instead, I need to go get my video camera and go out and provide some content for my customer base and for potential customers.
It doesn't even have to be video, just any channel. You know,
Blogs.
like, and that's the thing.
Speaking of others, go ahead.
Here's the biggest mistake. This is not the big. Every mistake I say is always the biggest. But here's another big mistake: is being primarily channel focused. Like you don't need to be on. Like everybody's like, be everywhere, do all this, do that. No, you don't. You need to be on the channels that you know your target audience, your ideal target client is on. Everybody thinks of a brand like, I have a brand because I created a cool name. Now I bought a domain. I put up a website. I've got cool cards. I'm doing all the cool thing. That's a brand. Listen, that's just the identity, you know, the identity tools and vehicles, and then the channels that you use for branding.
Right.
The true anatomy of a brand goes way deeper and beyond all that.
Right.
And that's the thing, is you don't have to be on every channel.
Right.
It's you can't be everywhere. Like, that's the problem, is we try to spread ourselves too thin.
Right.
You need to understand the channels that your target market, your ideal client is on. And that's what branding is built off of. It's not that if you don't have a website, you don't have a brand. If you don't have a website, you don't have a quality brand, and you're not leveraging it the right way. Because here's the thing. Every single one of you out there selling cars, desking deals, working for vendors, whomever's listening to this, a mom, a dad. As you can see, I'm a dad. There's
Perfect.
My son trying to peek in. That you all have a brand.
Right.
Because your brand is the perception that others have about you before ever even having an experience with you. So we all have a brand. But if you want to have a brand that's a quality brand, that's an authority brand that people look to, that becomes a resource, you got to have a website. If you're the dealer, provide them with these websites, these channels, because this is how it goes both ways. If I'm talking to a salesperson, I'm going to be like, dude, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is permission.
Sure.
Do it and get shut down. Right? If you're the dealer, put it out there and give it to them, because you know what? Then you freaking own it.
That's right.
It's
and
yours.
Let me hit on that
and
right
your
now.
Facebook pages and everything that these guys are doing, and they're thinking they're building a brand with Facebook. They're not, because they don't own Facebook or the audience they're building. That's Zuckerberg's audience.
Sure.
Not yours.
Sure.
They'll shut you down every day. Any day you could be gone.
Right. Well, and something that I've been toying with is creating a salesperson advertising co-op program, to where we will participate, the same way General Motors does it with us with our websites. All OEMs do it.
Yes.
And they say, great, we're going to assist you if you'll just follow some of these guidelines. Now,
If
we
you
all know
put X amount of skin in the game, you're going to put X amount in as
Absolutely.
well. I think that's a brilliant idea. And I think that if you tied in, especially to where you have some kind of, let them be them. Oh, but seriously, imagine if you had 10 JPs on the floor.
Absolutely.
Doing that.
Absolutely.
You don't have to your marketing slowly decrease. Your marketing budget will go down in the long run, because people buy from people.
Sure.
They'll buy from JP before they'll buy from Greg Lair, Buick GMC.
Absolutely. And that's what you're saying exactly, that we've had these conversations a lot here, and that's why we're toying with this salesperson co-op program, is because the people that are listening to this show with Robert and I right now, especially if you're a GM or a dealer, we get in such a control state of mind, and we want to limit all these things instead of understanding the exponential power of the internet, and understanding if we can support them in doing this, set up guidelines. One of my favorite quotes, I do quotes from time to time, and that sometimes they just come out, but give them riverbanks and then let them frickin' swim.
I am a Steve Jobs Apple fan back when it used to get you shoved in your locker. Not that it's the cool thing it is today. And his best thing is just don't look at your competition and see what they're doing and try to do it better.
Right.
Look at what they're doing and do it. How can I do it different?
How can people get a hold of you through Twitter, whatever?
Robert Wiseman, the I before the E, SMAN.com. Please, if I may. And first off, I think what you guys are doing over here, what I said about David earlier, even off the air, I'm going to reiterate, is that he's like a non-Jewish Howard Stern.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. That's good. What's your Twitter handle?
Oh, at Robert Wiseman, Wiesman. Please, if I may, check out thedealerplaybook.com. I'm so glad to see so many other people putting this together. Danny, this was great, dude. I hope that I gave these people listening in some kind of value, something like, oh yeah, well, yeah, oh definitely.
Wiseman,
Danny, thank you so much,
thank you
man.
for taking the time, man. I appreciate you, and let's stay in touch. And I promise I'll try to start answering your calls.
Thanks, Danny.
See you, buddy.
This thing right here is for the IS-20G. And this thing right here is by my man Danny B. What they call you?
Who's your Danny? They say it's me. Been doing cars since '83. I'm busting fools and teaching schools, sharing tools and breaking rules. Who's your Danny? They say it's me. Breaking it down for all to see. Keep it simple, keep it clear.
Professional actors on the set. Except we're not acting, we're just being real. Professional, real people on the set. Here comes Danny. Here comes Danny. Danny!
What's up, bud?
What's up, brother? How are you, man?
Good. How you been? What have you been up to?
Not too much, man. What about you?
A lot. This month has been busy. Studying Spanish, studying the piano. I just got back from Amsterdam for New Year's. That was a ton of fun. I just finished a new book. Just got a second patent, which is cool. I did air combat training, working out a whole bunch, astronaut training. So I've been kind of all over the place. It's been good. You? What have you been up to?
Went to Applebee's.
That's good. Good. I like Applebee's.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to Think Bigger. My name's Jason Stum, your host here on the show that inspires you to think beyond today and tomorrow to help you achieve your biggest ambitions. And we got a great show lined up for you today. I'm going to be joined by Danny Dover. And if you don't know who Danny is, he has a really interesting story. He lives the Think Bigger mindset, and he's actually the perfect guest to have here on our first real episode of Think Bigger. And back in 2010, Danny created a life list of over 150 things he wanted to accomplish. Not before he died, no, before May 25th, 2017. And he's done all kinds of things. He's been to all 7 continents, all 50 states, almost 100 different countries. He's a best-selling author. And what's amazing about this list he's created of the 150 things, he only has 7 left to accomplish. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit. So let's stop wasting time here. Let's bring Danny on the show and get right in to Think Bigger.
Please.
Danny, where you at?
What's up?
What up?
Hey, buddy.
Let's come on the show. Let's do
do it.
stuff, man.
All right,
Come
it's
on.
talk time.
All right. It's talk time where we talk to Danny.
I'm just going to walk over there. You can sing, dance.
I'll sing and dance my way over.
Yeah, I like it.
I'll sing and dance my way over. I'll probably need a coffee. I'm a big Danny Dover fan.
Oh.
I don't know you very well, but I feel like I do.
I think we're friends.
Yeah, I would call us friends for sure.
We moved past acquaintance and we're into friends.
We are in the friend zone.
We're in the friend zone.
We're in the friend zone. But just thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to have you because from what I know and what I've seen, I think it's clear that you have a think bigger mindset, and I think what we're going to talk about will resonate with our viewers. But before we jump into that, I'm just curious, when you hear the words think bigger, what does that mean to you?
I think we should address this right off the bat. So generally, think bigger is just a meaningless platitude. It's something that you see on corporate business cards and corporate motivational speakers. And I think the big challenge we have in this episode and this series at large is that we need to inject some meaning back into think bigger. Because I think it's a really important concept, We just need to bring it back down to earth a little bit. We need to make it actionable and make it something that's really part of people's lives.
Right, and that's really what the show is all about, because, you know, I've said this before, is that anybody can say, hey, you want to succeed in life, kid? You got to think bigger. It's like,
Right.
okay, great, think bigger. Well, how do I do that, or what does that mean?
What does that mean? So the way I see it is that think bigger is only necessary because of the way that society is constructed right now. Things are very, very specialized. You come here and you work on strategy all day, every day. That's what you focus on, and that's what you're very good at. And you go home and you'll get things that you just don't have to think about, like food, for example. You probably buy that at a grocery store. You get it from the fast food or whatever it may do. But you don't think about where the food came from. You don't have to think about the sourcing, about the farmers, about the animals, that kind of thing. It's all another specialist, somebody else who focuses on that stuff. The problem with this, though, is that by spending all this time on your career and all these things, focusing on your specialty, you couple your needs as a human being very closely to your job. So if you get fired, you no longer have the money to call the plumber or to get your food or to support your family. And this is a really big problem. This is a big, this is a big, I think, fear that lots of people deal with.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned this is something I kind of want to dive into a little bit, because I think it's a recurring theme. I think all of us deal with internal struggle, and our external world is looking good. So it's like, do I have a good career? Check. Mm-hmm. Is my family healthy? Check. Am I able to, get by on my own means? Check. And so you look around and you compare yourself to what you see, and you're like, well, we should be doing great. But inside, things don't feel right. I think we all struggle with that.
So I was very overweight. I was just at the beginning in 2010 dealing with depression. I call depression the smart person's disease. This makes me feel better about it. It was something that I was really struggling with. I started talking to people, and this took place over a long time. I started talking to people over conversations over coffee, actually, so just like this, about, hey, what are the things that are making you happy in your life? And that was important to me. And from that, I realized that it wasn't things that people were buying necessarily. It wasn't even things that people were reading or thoughts that people were having. It was experiences. And I realized pretty quickly, those are things that I can manifest in my life if I'm able to put the effort into it. If I'm able to not just think bigger, but act bigger. So from the conversations I had with lots of these people, I made a list, but 150 items, right? And I got started on that. And I decided, you know what? Too rarely in our time do we have somebody who will make a purpose for their life, just choose something. It's usually like you just follow the normal path of what's going to happen. But I was like, no, I want to have a purpose that I've chosen. I want to make that the reason I wake up every morning. And it took me a really, really long time. And I didn't have a lot of resources, and it wasn't like I had this idea, I started working on this list, and all of a sudden I was happy. Totally did not work like that. It took years of navigation, a lot of mistakes, a ton of just total screw-ups, things I should have been smarter than. But eventually I got to an area where this became my lifestyle, where I work on these life list items every single week. Yeah, I think that lots of people deal with these kind of things. I found a solution for me. I'm certainly not a medical professional, and I can't give any advice on what others should do, but this is the path that worked for me to get out.
So just for clarification here, maybe I should ask you this first. What's the difference between a life list and a bucket list?
Good question. So a bucket list has an emphasis on death, because you're trying to finish the bucket list before you die. And for many reasons that's very difficult, mostly because you don't know when that's going to happen, and secondly because as you get older you tend to have more responsibilities, makes it harder to do things that would be on a list, right? Mm-hmm. A life list is similar in that it's a group of goals that you want to accomplish, but you give yourself a deadline that is in the foreseeable future. So I think mine was 5 or 6 years ahead of when I created it.
Okay, well, which is so cool. And I just need to ask you, because I'm sure people are going, okay, you got a life list of things you're working on. I mean, do you have a career at the same time, a job?
I do, because it turns out you have to pay for this stuff somehow. Yeah. So I've very purposefully built a small company and diversified my income. So I don't have one main source of money anyway. And I did this on purpose because I don't want to be tightly coupled to anything. So if I screw up and if I take risks and it doesn't work out, I'll be okay. So I make money in about 5 different ways. They're all online. So there's consulting I do here at Launch, which I love. It's mostly training and analytics strategy. I do YouTube videos, so there's a lot of advertisement done with that, a lot of sponsorships that go with that. I have some affiliate work, and then just kind of other random things I make money doing. So
you have multiple streams of what they would call that the smart passive income model, right? Where you have different versions of money coming in.
Although, right, so there's this idea of there's this idea of passive income, and I think that's just total bull. I mean, we both work really hard. Mm-hmm. So it's while some of it may happen in the background, it took me years to be able to get to that point first.
Which is the secret to smart passive income, by the way. You have to work really hard.
Yeah, the 4-hour work week is like maybe at the end you might achieve that, but you probably worked so hard before that you just get bored. So
You're not married.
I'm not married, no.
You don't have kids.
I don't have kids. I don't have pets.
Right.
I don't have a mortgage.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're unencumbered. So and that's it's interesting. That's why I enjoy what you do, because I live a little bit vicariously through you. I'm like, oh man, if I could only be Danny. But then I go, well, see, I'm married, got 2 toddlers, got 1 on the way, got a puppy, got things to take care of, and it's like how I can't do that. So it's like well, what's the point?
I hear you. I mean, I think that I've made some choices in my life based off my priorities, but I certainly don't think that they're the right priorities for everybody. The things that I find fulfillment in are not necessarily what are right for everybody. And I think that and this goes for anybody, because we're now talking about real life here, there's things in your life that I will probably never get to experience, and there's also things in my life that you may never get to experience as well. And it's always just a trade-off.
Yeah.
So mine might look luxurious and cool or whatever, but there's also things that you're doing in your life that I'm very envious of.
And right, and say, oh man, I wish I could go to Applebee's with Jason on Friday night and have mozzarella sticks.
I like mozzarella sticks.
I really like mozzarella sticks. I'm fascinated by them. So let's think about a guy like me who has a family. Can we take these same kind of lessons and make a life list for our family?
I think so. I mean, if you look back on some of your favorite memories with your family, those are things that could be related to bucket list items or life list items in this case. So it doesn't have to be formal like mine. I just knew I was going to procrastinate on this unless I did that.
Right.
But what's nice about this is it gives you the excuse to get out and do these things that are inconvenient, to spend like a little bit more money than you might otherwise because you want to go out to like a park with your family, or you might want to go out like a little bit of a road trip. Whereas normally it's just like that's too hard because there's all these problems with diapers and all these kind of things. If you have a list and you have a reason you've all agreed on it as a family, it gives you that little push that I think is really useful.
Right. And that's that's what I'm coming to. So here's a great example out of my own life. So it's again 2 kids, 1 on the way, and talk about taking a trip to Disney World, right? Right now,
really good one.
With everything that's going on and knowing how expensive it is to take 3 kids.
Taking action on that is difficult.
Yeah. So how do you go about using that as an example, how do we go about taking action on that and taking it from our head and getting it out and on the path towards reality?
So I think all hard problems at their root is really just a prioritization issue. What I've started to learn slowly is that excuses are genuine, and there's 2 kinds. There's the self-imposed ones, which I think make up 90%. There's excuses that are imposed by the world around you. So many of the self-imposed ones are not real in the sense that they can be overcome, but it's like the purpose of a hurdle or the existence of a hurdle is because something is difficult. Meaning it is very difficult logistically to get you and your family to Disneyland. But if that was the sole purpose of your life, it was the only thing you cared about, it could be done. So what this does is it helps you find a happy medium in the middle. It also doesn't make sense to quit your job and then move to Disney World, but it does help.
Start working at Disney World to get the employee discount.
That's right. Way cheaper if you're already there, right? So it's about making these things that are not prioritized as it is, moving them closer to prioritization. Okay. And just like with anyone, I think the idea is to start with things that are achievable and then build up momentum.
Right. So for a big idea like that, tell me, does this make sense to you? I've done this before in little exercises. Take something big and actually work through it backwards.
Yeah.
So instead of to start from the beginning, take the family to Disney World. Okay, we're at Disney World. How did we get here? Well, we drove in the car. Okay, did we drive in our car or did we rent an RV at Disney World?
It suddenly feels more achievable.
Yeah.
And I think the part that a lot of people mess up, and I've done this many, many times, is just the timeline. Like if you're trying to get to Disney World tomorrow, it's just not going to happen. If you're trying to get to Disney World this year, it might not happen either. But if you say over the next 10 years, I want to take me and my family to Disney World, that's an achievable goal. So, but just like what you're saying, doing that backwards and making it more realistic starts to break down these ideas where it's just impossible, it can't happen.
Right.
It starts to become more possible.
So let's do this. Let's change it up. So we've been talking about some of the cool things that you've done and whatnot. But I think when we start talking about thinking bigger and doing certain things, there's always the possibility that it's not going to turn out the way we envision. Some people might deem that a failure. If you have that word in your vocabulary, a lot of people say failure is not an option.
Right.
Hey, to me, failure makes you stronger. If you fail at something, you take what you learn. I mean, do you have any experience that sticks out to you where you set out to accomplish something on your list and it just was a mess, it didn't work out?
Absolutely, and this is a theme throughout my whole list, that dealing with my body. So right now I'm working on trying to get 6-pack abs, which is
me too, brother.
Yeah, awesome. Oh. and I'm sucking at it. It's really, really hard. The problem with diet, at least in diet and exercise in my mind, is that there's a million small decisions. So this is something I've been working on for a year and a half now. I've failed basically the entire point. But like, to take this to the extreme, I moved for a while to Germany for 3 months. All I did there, I don't speak German, all I did there was work out and eat well. I was lucky enough to be invited by a couple there that owns a CrossFit gym, Ann and Paul. And all I did for 3 months was work out and eat well. And I got really, really close, but then I came back home because my visa expired, and I came into the holidays, and I just ate all that potential away. So Carbo City, and it felt great, but it was me failing yet again on this assignment.
Well, but this is where you moved to Germany for 3 months, right?
Yeah.
If I want 6-pack abs, sorry, honey, I'm gonna try. I'll try.
So this
Moved
is
to Germany for 3 months.
So this is an
Who
idea-
do you think you are?
Yeah, who can do that, right? So this is an idea I call outlier status, because certain events will happen. Like for me, it's runners. So I'll talk to someone who just ran an ultra marathon, right? And what happens is I view that person and I immediately just say like, you're a crazy outlier, and then you just completely write it off. And that happens for me. It's runners. For other people, maybe like people who live crazy lifestyles. And I think that that's actually the goal, is outlier status. For me, freedom is a very core part of my life. It's something that indirectly affects me in every way. And so achieving outlier status so that I can do these things is something I prioritize, so that when I have a challenge like this, I can pull out these tools that no one else has access to.
Yeah, and once again, you actually kind of bring up in that whole thing a good point, obviously. So somebody reached out to you from Germany and said, hey, we've got this CrossFit place, we're trainers, come on over. That doesn't happen if you're not being public about sharing your ambitions and your goals, right? You know, how important is that for you to just tell people what you're trying to accomplish?
Well, I started out doing it just because I wanted to be accountable. And then I started realizing that there's a lot of like-minded people and there's a lot of interesting people who can teach me a lot. And so by sharing my story in these ways, I do it through a blog and through videos, that it's actually been a really, really nice bonding and connection and community that's started to develop from it.
Right, so you have a whole community there on lifelisted.com. Now, people come to your website and they share ideas and help each other out and provide motivation for each other. That's really cool.
It turns out that a lot of people are dealing with exactly the same issues, and they're just trying to figure out, okay, how do you get to this outlier status? How do you get to a point, structure your life so that you can move to Germany for 3 years? Because it's just such a crazy idea, but people are able to do it. So it's about building that bridge to get from point A to point crazy,
right,
a little bit farther down the road.
Right. So I'm going to ask you a hard question. So when we're talking about a life list, when we're talking about putting these things together, this is something that's very personal, right? Can you use those same kind of tenets to achieve something professionally within your company or in an entrepreneurial way?
So this is where I disagree with a lot of people. So the way I view it is that my profession and my career exists only to fuel everything else. So I want to enjoy the work that I'm doing, but rather than it being the core part and the most important thing in my life, it just is one of many. So in the same way I've diversified my income, I diversify my time, whereas my professional life is only one of 5 or 6 things. So for me, the necessity of thinking bigger is figuring out, okay, how can I reconstruct this? How can I decouple these needs in my life from the work that I'm doing so that I have the opportunity, the luxury to think about other things, to think bigger?
But there's people out there, I think you have to agree, there's people out there who their lives and their work are intertwined, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. Yeah. And for the company they work for, or if they own their own business, they're invariably connected. And really, I think there's people tuned in the show right now who want to have these ideas in their head, and they want to get them out, not for any kind of personal thing, but to build their business or to do something for their company. How do we take these lessons and actually encourage people to use them to develop that product for their car dealership that they know is going to make a huge difference for their company?
So for me, the big tactical tool has been using SMART goals. So breaking down big problems. I don't think you just start out thinking bigger. I think that you have to start thinking smaller in many ways, and then hey, all those ideas connect. That's kind of interesting. So taking that there. So what I do, and I think what's made the biggest difference in my life, is reading a book called Getting Things Done by David Allen. And he has a system for getting things done. And what he does is he takes all of your big projects, these things that are overwhelming, breaks them into small sizes, and he creates a system so you can handle these things that are coming through.
Okay.
All these crazy requests. So by doing that, and it's the same idea as SMART goals, then I think that professional life becomes more manageable, because you can start prioritizing things, which again, from my worldview, prioritization is the root of all problems that people run into. So if you know where you're trying to go, then it makes it much easier to prioritize. This system that he's developed has been really useful for me for trying to figure out, okay, how do I logistically take the priorities I have, apply them to the situation that's around me for making money, for spending time with friends, for whatnot, so that I can then make this realistic and useful.
Bam. I like that.
Good stuff.
I like that. You're doing good, bro.
You too.
Do a little. Well, you're doing all the talking. Yes. So now, how good are you at ping pong?
Oh, I'm terrible.
All right, let's go.
All right.
When you serve, it has to bounce off your side and over.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh.
Only when he's, yeah.
So, but it's got to hit my side, but then does it have to hit that side? Or can it
No,
also
it's not
hit
like tennis where it's, or maybe it is. I haven't, like I
don't
said, I
know.
haven't played in 20 years. So what's next on the life list? What do you got left?
So right now I'm focusing on Spanish. The next big move that I have is to Colombia. So I'll be living in Medellin for the next 3 months or so.
Oh, wow. What's your name in Spanish?
Danny.
Danito? I thought there was a Spanish equivalent for everyone's American name.
I don't think so. I don't think so. How do you do that?
Having you to be the first guest on the show to really help lay the foundation for us as we take our journey into thinking bigger. You couldn't have been a better person. Thanks for coming out from Seattle over here to Chicago. Yeah, so it means the world to me, man. I really appreciate it.
Totally rock. Yeah.
Right on, brother.
Yeah.
Right on.
Stop cheersing.
Stop, you did that already. And that's
I
it,
like
guys.
cheersing.
This episode of Think Bigger, we're going to wrap it up. Really appreciate you tuning it in. Here's a little cheers to you watching at home, too. Hold up your coffee mug, your inappropriate coffee mug. Give it a little drink of coffee, whatever's left. And we'll see you next Tuesday, 3:30 p.m. on the Autotainment Network. Join us as we continue to Think Bigger.
Here from LauraDrives.com and Alan Ram's Proactive Training Solutions. Thank you for joining me on the Laura Drive segment on Auto Dealer Live. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into how to use social media to garner more visibility, specifically with search engines. Video is undoubtedly an extremely powerful medium to garner visibility for your personal brand and for you as a salesperson to drive people in directly to see you. The strongest social media platform that you can use to advance this visibility is one I talk about all the time. It's YouTube. And I'm going to show you 3 big examples that helped me as a car salesperson in Montana garner visibility. Let's hop into the first one. The first example is a simple video I did of the 2014 Toyota Tacoma Limited. I filmed a quick video with my iPhone, walking around the Tacoma Limited, showing off some of its features, and uploaded this to YouTube. I titled it 2014 Toyota Tacoma Limited. I figured if somebody's looking for this vehicle, hopefully my video can pop up, they can be introduced to me, and I can motivate them to ask for me specifically, to reach out to me or come into the dealership asking about that or other Tacoma vehicles. Because YouTube is owned by Google, Google favors YouTube videos in its results. In fact, you are 53 times more likely to show up on the first page of Google with a video than something like, say, a blog post. So this is part of the strategy here. Not only is YouTube and video a fierce medium to expand your social media presence, but we're also showing up when people are searching terms and they're in the market for a vehicle. So here's what's spectacular about this. If you Google 2014 Toyota Tacoma Limited, my video is going to be the first thing that comes up below toyota.com. Can you begin to see the visibility advantages here with YouTube? Let me give you another example. I tried to create a helpful video called How a Lease Works, something that I imagined people were typing into search engines, and a question that I got asked all the time. If you Google How a Lease Works, my video pops up on the first page, about halfway down under CNN. Again, this video encouraged a ton of people to reach out to me specifically, and definitely got me local business and people walking through the door asking for me who would have never otherwise known who Laura Madison was. My final favorite example is Supercharged Tundra. Again, it was a quick video that was filmed on my iPhone. If you Google Supercharged Tundra, my video is one of the very first things that pops up on Google on this first page. Again, the visibility advantages were fierce. Within a month of uploading that video, we were getting calls from all over the US, people asking us about Supercharged Tundra. And we also got a lot of local attention for that video as well. So I have 3 big rules for you to take away to use YouTube to gain you visibility and get onto Google. The first is pick something spicy. Pick something exciting, something that's trending in the news or that you're super jazzed about. Pick that as a topic. Your second step is to keep it simple. Film the video on your iPhone. Keep the video, let's say, under 2 or 3 minutes. It doesn't need to be long or profound. It can just be very simple about the topic that you've picked. Step number 3 is simply get this video on YouTube. Again, YouTube is owned by Google. It's the place we want to have our videos housed because they can create visibility advantages just like what I'm talking about here. So follow these 3 steps and that's how you'll get people walking through the door asking specifically for you. Thanks for watching and joining us on Auto Dealer Live. Again, I'm Laura with Allen Ram's Proactive Training Solutions and LauraDrives.com. Look forward to my social selling course coming out very soon. Thanks again.
Welcome to episode number 19. On today's show, we talk websites, delivery gifts, referral spiffs, and how car sales is just like being in theater.
When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A car salesman.
Said no one ever.
Hi, I'm Patrick Hennessy.
And I'm Courtney Hennessy.
Welcome to the Be Less Typical in Car Sales podcast, a real-life account of the car business that breaks the perception of what it's like to be a car sales professional. During the show, we're going to take you into the lives and minds of those who have found success. So ignite your passion and get ready to learn effective hacks to streamline your success and boost your income.
So, is that your pitch?
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Last week, we talked to Bill Stout, car sales pro out of Wichita, Kansas, a guy who's passionate about the car business, firm in his beliefs, and someone who lives by his mission statement.
That came in and I did everything in my power to help these people. Now, there are some times that no matter how good a closer you are or how good you are at the psychology of this business, there's going to be that one guy that just wants to fight you over the last 26 cents. This was that guy. I have never lost my temper in this business except that day. I blew up. I lost it. I was tired of arguing with him after an hour and 45 minutes. I held my tongue and didn't call him a lot of the things I wanted to say, but I felt so bad about it for so long that about 2 months after it happened, I called him.
I don't know any salespeople who would call a customer like this back. Many people would gripe about the customer, calling them a colorful assortment of names if they were in a similar situation.
But not Bill.
I called him and apologized. And they had bought a car somewhere else. And we talked for a long time.
And that's just the kind of guy Bill is, a man who is committed to doing things the right way, a man who is committed to being less typical.
The moral of this story is, in making this call, I unloaded the burden of the anger that I had that I usually just don't let myself get to. And never really thought much more about it until last month when he walked in and bought a car. Walked in the door and said he wanted to see me because the fact that I called to apologize.
That's amazing, and it's a testament to how Bill does business. He goes above and beyond when it comes to creating a positive customer experience. If you haven't already, be sure to check out last week's episode where Bill shared his customer follow-up system and prospecting tools.
Now, let's get into the actionable items you can take away and learn from Bill. Let's start with his website and why he feels the need to have one in the first place.
When I started it, it was one of those aha, I'm an idiot moments. I'm sitting around one day realizing that I'm constantly on Facebook, I'm constantly on Twitter, I use that stupid Instagram and all these other things, and they were actually occasionally bringing me business, but I didn't know why, and I didn't have any way to track it.
Bill's website is billstoutsellscars.com, and when I mentioned that I had been poking around his website recently, he tells me,
well, actually, if you haven't seen it today, it looks very different because I just completely reconstructed it yesterday.
This is Bill's fourth time reconstructing his website, and this surprises me because until Be Less Typical, I didn't know salespeople were making their own personal websites to sell cars at all. But apparently Bill's been doing this for a while. He's 4 steps ahead.
When you land on Bill's website, billstoutsellscars.com, there's a header video that begins playing.
Hi, I'm Bill Stout from BillStoutSellsCars.com at Schofield Hyundai West in Wichita, Kansas. I'd like to welcome you to my website and invite you to take a look around. I think you'll be impressed with what you find. Hyundai has so much to offer, and we have pre-owned cars as well. I promise you this, I'll never waste your time, I'll always answer your questions, and most importantly, you'll get shocked by a better buying experience when you buy from Bill. Have a look around and see what you think.
And you'll notice right away that Bill has branded himself as the shocker guy. He's a huge Wichita State fan and even wears Wichita State colors every day, gold, black, or white. And his slogan is his URL, Bill Stout Sells Cars.
The slogan stuck and his brand has grown. He says that Bill Stout Sells Cars has become his nickname around the dealership. He doesn't mind because the more people who hear it, the better.
And he's built his website around information and education, things his customers are interested in. Things customers want to read, see, or hear about, and items that will keep customers coming back to his site.
And that's where I came up with the idea of giving them things that would make them want to come back. What are we doing at the dealership right now? What am I offering? Where am I giving money to charity? Videos about how to maintenance you should do to your car and how to set up things in your new car, how to program the radio and how to pair your cell phone and how everything works. And even stuff, there's a section in there in buying advice telling you what things you ought to know before you buy a car. And there's a video on there about how to get the most money for your trade when you take it in and how to understand your trade value.
The results?
And what I've seen since I did that and changed from selling to offering a service is that my website traffic has exploded. When I went into my second generation of the website where I started to develop this, I was getting about 85 to 100 unique hits a week. Now I get over 6,000.
Wow, that's a significant amount of traffic and a huge change from what his last website was wielding.
In Bill's words, his website has allowed him to achieve exponential growth. Essentially, he's been able to compile a set of resources for his target audience.
They couldn't get somewhere else. Resources all in one place, and at the same time they associate it with my name and my face.
The end result of this effort are happy customers who travel far and wide to buy from Bill.
He mentions a gentleman who drove 5 hours, passing several other Hyundai dealerships, just to buy a car from him. Clients are even flying in to buy from Bill.
But I had a gentleman fly in from New Mexico into Wichita. I picked him up at the airport just to buy a Genesis and drive it home because he was so intrigued with how much I knew about the product.
The website provides Bill with an opportunity to showcase his knowledge and expertise. He uses video as the primary format for showcasing this expertise. We'll get into the importance of video in just a little bit.
Back to the website. As you navigate your way through it, you'll learn all about why you should buy from Bill. In other words, his value proposition and differentiation.
That you provide free car washes, which I love, by the way, loaner cars, which are a must, and even a free gift when you take delivery. And
You got it.
He had Courtney at Free Gift, an idea he came across a few years back.
Okay, here's what started this. I was at a convention. Oh, no, it was poker. When we walked in the room, they handed everybody a gift basket or a gift bag. And I'm going through the gift bag, and it's just little trinkets, but it was everybody's oohing and awing and thinking, oh, this is really cool. And I'm noticing because they got this dumb $10 gift bag, every one of them went up to the table and either bought a book or more chips. So for each $10 that the company had spent, they were making $35. And I thought that this is ridiculous, but it makes so much sense.
so he notices this going on and decides then and there he needs to do something like this for his customers. And then the analysis and brainstorming began. As you might have noticed from the last episode, Bill is a numbers guy. He says,
I was spending about $3.50 on every delivery. And I thought, if I push that to $9, a meager $9, that's still a tiny amount of money for every car I'm delivering.
So he starts testing out different gifts that cost about $5 and found that the number one favorite was...
Well, number one, the absolute biggest one is cookies. People love cookies, especially fresh baked cookies.
Lucky for him, there's a Subway and a Schlotzsky's adjacent to the dealership, both of which offer fresh baked cookies. Another option?
Or cinnamon rolls. Now, they're more expensive, but if it's a client buying a more expensive car, I'm big on the Cinnabons.
So when the customer is in with the finance manager, Bill runs across the street and gets a dozen fresh baked cookies or Cinnabons.
what about clients who aren't food people? I don't know how that's possible, but there are some out there.
For non-foodies and at the holidays, he gives out...
My favorite thing are stuffed animals. I know how silly it sounds, and if you look at some of the photos I post on Facebook, everybody makes fun of them until they get one.
He buys these stuffed animals by the case from Walmart. Each Christmas, he buys 5 cases of stuffed reindeer and Santa Clauses and pays $3 a piece for them.
What I don't put in cars, I keep till next year or give to kids that are in the showroom. It's cheap advertising.
And then to take it one step further, because that's how Bill does things, to ensure he's getting maximum exposure.
I bought those iron-on patches that you can heat transfer information onto or laser print. And I have my logo laser printed with my phone number, and I put those on those stuffed animals. That cost me about a penny each.
Nice. He goes on to list other items that he has for different seasons or reasons. During the Shocker season, he has WSU Shocker hats with his name and logo embroidered on them. If you remember from the beginning of the episode, Bill branded himself as the Shocker guy, so this fits his branding and image perfectly. He also gives out Shocker miniature basketballs that are autographed by the players.
It literally can be anything. It's not the value of it, it's the perceived value, the fact that nobody else did anything like this for them.
I've got to say, these small gifts and unexpected acts of kindness really do make you stand apart. After we talked to Bill, we decided to test the theory. We did something similar for all of the people who have been interviewed on the show. We sent them a holiday car sales care kit filled with small items to help them get through the holidays. Advil, a Tide pen, hand sanitizer, Febreze, etc. And of course, we threw in a few Be Less Typical stickers and pens too. The response was amazing. Everyone was so thankful. Not only was this a way to show our appreciation, it also kept us top of mind with our audience. So thanks, Bill, and hopefully you enjoyed your package.
Back to business.
Okay, how can someone start out?
If you're looking to begin a website, there's a TNT program that Bill recommends. And it just so happens that the company that runs the TNT program is an affiliate of Jonathan Dawson, who's one of Bill's mentors and friends, and a future guest.
But if you're just starting out in the car business or new to using social as a sales tool, Bill recommends that you do not start out of the gate by building a website, because you have to be able to drive traffic there. And if you're new, you probably don't have the traffic to drive.
But the best place to start is YouTube. The reason is this. Think of YouTube as a free television channel, free infomercials, free commercials. You can make as many as you want, anytime you want, and as long as you understand how to name them so they'll be found in search engines, you'll get much more traffic from that, especially at first.
YouTube is scary for many salespeople. Kenny mentioned it in episode number 11, and we agree. There hasn't been a day yet that I've been excited to shoot a video, even if I'm prepared. It still makes me nervous.
However, once you start and accumulate viewers and followers, you can grow it into other segments.
If you haven't already, be sure to listen to episode number 2, where Melissa Granke walks us through her step-by-step process for video creation. She outlines how to prepare, provides a list of the equipment she uses, and gives ideas for video content topics. In addition, we also have a blog post that we'll link to with step-by-step instructions for creating a YouTube channel and uploading video.
So once you're to this point, there are 2 key factors to increasing SEO and driving traffic with your videos: the title and description with meta tags.
The first part is how you name the video itself. And the key is you want to use your name or your moniker or your nickname or whatever it is you want to be recognized by in the name of the video, in every one of them.
In addition, include the dealership name, city, and state within the title. For example, each video that Bill uploads has the following title format:
Bill Stout, Schofield Hyundai West, Wichita, Kansas. The rest of the name of it will be before that.
Now for the description, Bill says,
in the description, more is better.
Write a robust description filled with keywords someone would search for when looking for your content. Also include your name, your dealership's name, and once again, city and state. Remember, more is better, so fill it up. Then there's the meta tags, same philosophy as the description.
But the big one is meta tags. At the bottom, after you put the description and the name, there's a place to put in tags. Load it up. There is no limit as to how many tags you can put on a YouTube video.
So for example,
what I suggest is you put, if your dealership is Bob's Auto Sales, then you want Bob's Auto Sales, Bob Auto, Auto Sales, every type of vehicle you can think of by brand, not just the ones you sell, but other brand. Because when people go in and search for a Nissan in Wichita, Kansas, even though we're not a Nissan dealer, I want them to find me first.
Doing this increases your SEO and helps people find your video content easier.
Okay, so step number 1, YouTube. Step number 2?
This one is critical. The second thing that I always recommend is Facebook. I know Facebook gets overused, and it does, but you see so many salespeople that take pictures of their clients. But what purpose does that serve?
I don't know.
None.
Think of it this way.
If we're at a family reunion and I take a photo, 3 years from now, you're not going to remember who took the photo. You're only going to remember who's in it.
Okay, point taken.
So instead of taking a photo of your client, take a photo with your client.
I like it. What's next and what's the benefit?
Once you've taken the pic, friend request the person on Facebook. Once they've accepted, upload the picture, tag them, and yourself. And the outcome?
What's going to happen is all of your friends are going to see it and all their friends are going to see it. People are going to comment on it and like it. And then inevitably, somebody's going to say, where did you buy your car?
Watch the comment thread, and you might just get a warm lead. If someone posts a question asking where the vehicle was purchased, they might ask about the salesperson, or mention that they're in the market for a vehicle. Essentially, this photo and your new Facebook friend has just turned into a referral tool.
The sleazy salesperson is going to say, well, that's a self-generated lead. I don't owe them a referral. I completely disagree. If their friend commented that they're looking for a car, to me, that's a referral. So I'm going to pay a referral to the original client, and then they're going to send me another one.
Love it.
Facebook is an invaluable resource if you use it the right way. Videos, cars, specials, photos with your clients, friending your clients, and tagging yourself.
Social media is a tool, so I encourage you to use it like one. Bill feels pretty passionate about this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say that, they know how to be on social media. Hell, their phone's in front of their face 9 hours a day, but they don't know how to use it. Here you are, you're spending somewhere between 8 and 14 hours a day at a dealership. You're talking to your friends and watching videos of cats falling off of chairs, and you have a resource right there in your hands that can make you money. Why not use it?
Bill says that Facebook works better for referrals than any other social platform, Twitter, Google+, etc. And on the topic of referrals, we asked what he considered a fair referral dollar amount.
It's important to note that in some states, paying a referral fee is prohibited, but there are ways around everything. As Bill notes,
nevertheless, it's not illegal to give somebody a gift.
So go get a fruit basket or something that will be of value to the client. Like Quentin mentioned in episode number 16, if you've gotten to know your customer throughout the process, you should know what their interests are and what they might like as a thank you. Think about it. What creates a memorable experience?
According to Bill, and we agree with him, if you just pop a check in the mail,
it doesn't have any meaning.
So how much do you pay for a referral?
I think the number is less important than the expression that's involved.
I agree with this, and the reason a check in the mail doesn't mean much is because it doesn't provoke any type of emotional tie or feeling. But when there's something more, when your customer feels and knows that you care, that you went out of your way to do something special for them, that means something. Bill has an analogy for this.
It's like everything else. We are in the theater business, whether we like it or not. We are on stage from the moment we start our day to the moment we go to bed.
It's funny because I used to make this analogy back when I worked as an F&I manager at the dealership. When my family would ask about my job, I told them it was like being on stage. Apparently, I'm not the only one who feels that way.
So we're all in the theater business, and if you can make referrals and the delivery of that referral special, if you make a big deal about it, they will too.
Bill likes to provide the referral in person.
I like to show up at their office.
He makes it special. If he's delivering a check, he tries to accompany it with warm cookies or
donuts. Donuts are always a big hit in the morning.
In addition, he brings
and business cards, because when you show up like that, they're going to introduce you to everybody in their office. And inevitably, those people buy cars too.
So all of these niceties are part of a larger strategy, a really smart strategy. Not saying that Bill isn't a super nice guy, because he is, but he's figured out a way to use this theatrical event to help grow his business. But back to the original question, how much do you pay for a referral?
Our store does $100, they pay the first $50. Now, I manipulate that all the time.
If you're contributing, you can manipulate your referral program to drive the results you're looking for.
I'll run a video one month that says, this month, if you send me somebody, you get $200. Or like in my monthly newsletter, I put everybody's birthdays this month and say, if during this month for your birthday, if you send me a referral, they pay double this month. Now, I pay the extra $100, but it's worth every penny.
Yeah, for sure. It's a sale that you didn't have.
Another school of thought?
And I'm really glad that you explained it the way you did, because I've met many people that are staunch opponents, people that I very highly respect, that are staunch opponents of a referral cash system. You know, their opinion is if you provide a very high level of service, then naturally people will send people they know to you. In some ways, I agree with that, but I love what you're saying, that it doesn't have to be financial. It can just be a very sincere thank you with some level of service to it. You know, just showing up at their door, I mean, that would blow people's minds.
I can honestly say I don't know anyone, nor have I had an experience with this level of personalized touch to the customer experience. And to take that one step further, I never would have thought a salesman cared this much about his customer's experience and about his business.
It's important to remember that the customer relationship doesn't end when the customer drives off the lot.
That doesn't mean that it has to be over when they take delivery. I do something I call the never-ending delivery, with balloons and cards all over the car and money hidden in the gas tank and stickers in the doors. But then I show up at their office a week later with a thank you note and a basket of something.
This sounds a little like a circus at first glance. However, when I started thinking about it and put myself in the customer's shoes, I flashed back to a few months ago when I took delivery of my car. I remember my first post-delivery fuel fill-up, kinda. I remember thinking to myself, I wonder how much this is going to cost me now that my car takes premium grade. But other than that, I don't remember much. Now, let's just say I was a Bill Stout customer, and when I went to fill up for the first time, there was a note inside the gas compartment with a few bucks or a gas card. That would have been memorable, and without a doubt, I would have posted it on my social media feeds, in addition to using it as a small talk, conversation topic when out with a crowd.
We digress. Back to Bill. As he's telling us about this never-ending delivery, I was impressed. And then he drops this on us.
Well, with used cars, I take it a little bit further.
What? Come on. How's that possible?
I don't care if the car has 2 keys or not. And this is a great one for new people, because if you want to create business, I promise you this will do it. When you sell a used car, for most places, a used car is going to have a higher commission than a new car. So you've got a little more money to work with in your pocket. So if every client's going to want to negotiate, well, it doesn't have 2 keys, it doesn't have floor mats, it's missing the owner's manual. If you're willing to negotiate those and take them out of your gross, so be it. But I'm not. So I'm going to make a note of what that item was that they mentioned that they wanted so bad, but they didn't want to pay for. They all cost about the same. whether it be a programmed key or floor mats or a stupid owner's manual. Whichever one it is, after they take delivery, I'm going to get that item. And then I'm going to show up at their office a week later with that item and a thank you note and cookies or whatever. And I promise you it makes a much bigger impact than anybody expects it to.
And just in case you're still not convinced, Bill shares with us that he recently had a dealer from another part of the country call him and ask him if he would be willing to share his delivery strategy, tools, and outline. Bill obliges, and only a few months later, he gets a call back from the same dealer.
He called me 2 weeks ago to tell me he has 2 guys that are basically doing 90% of my delivery pack. They haven't invested in the balloons and the pins and some of the other stuff. He said, but they have already seen their referrals more than double and their repeat business go up by about 20%.
That uptick in business is something to take note of. I think everyone would agree that we would all love to double our referral business and increase our customer retention by 20%, which brings up another question.
And when do you have time to show up at these people's offices?
When do I have time?
Yeah.
I make time. I mean, I'm the kind of guy that I always can find that moment in my schedule.
He's flexible with his schedule. He likes to hand deliver the referral or thank you in person within a week. Now, that doesn't always happen. It gets busy, so you need to be flexible.
Let's be honest. I mean, there's some days where you don't have time to even tie your shoes, okay? But there's other days where you've got 2 or 3 hours of absolutely nothing going on. So I use that 2 or 3 hours and I disappear from the lot and go do this kind of stuff.
With an established schedule and self-created guidelines for himself, he's able to use his time wisely. I have heard it said in the past that if you need something done, then give it to someone who is already busy, meaning that people that keep themselves busy and productive are the most productive people.
As a short aside, if you're concerned with how management might react to you taking off for a few hours during the day, don't be a Houdini. Don't just disappear without letting anyone know what you're doing or where you're going, and choose the timing wisely.
And if your manager understands that you are generating business, they're not going to have a problem with it.
As a manager, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Listening to this, it may sound like Bill is always happy-go-lucky and positive. He's consistent and successful, but he does struggle sometimes.
Just like everyone else, he does get into a slump from time to time.
I think my big one has always been when it's the 5th or the 10th of the month and I don't have enough cars out to satisfy me. And I start getting really down on myself and I start thinking, I must not be doing something right, and I got to figure out some way to speed this up and way to get somebody in the booth right now. After you go through that a couple of times, the one thing that I have come out of that with, and I try to remind myself every time that happens, there are 2 things that are wrong with that mental attitude. Number 1, you've already talked yourself into failure. There's an old adage that both success and failure are premeditated. Which one's on your mind? The second thing is, every time you try to rush what we all know how to do the right way, we start doing it the wrong way.
I think everyone goes through this. There are highs and lows and everyone's selling cadence. And when you're in a slump, it's really hard to pull out. Bill's advice to himself and others who find themselves in this place is, number 1, slow down and go back to the basics.
But the second thing is, and the biggest one, and I'm as much to blame as anybody else, and none of us are perfect, get out of the huddle. Stay away from the 5-car-a-month club. They will not help you in any way, shape, or form. They have nothing positive to share. In fact, not only do they not have anything positive to share about this business, they have nothing positive to share about life. All they want to do is tell tales of woe and smoke more cigarettes.
Whatever is holding you back, whatever is getting in the way of you achieving your goals, leave it at the door. Easier said than done sometimes, but it's worth a try.
So do yourself a favor. Put the cigarette down. If whiskey's your problem, put it down till you get home. If your wife or your kids or your dog is your problem, put them down till you get home. Whatever that thing is that's getting in the way of your mental attitude and the desire to win, not to succeed, to win, put it down. Leave it at home. Deal with it later.
Amen.
Amen is right. And this is just another sermon we all need to remember and share with others.
In closing, there are two final thoughts that Bill leaves us with. First,
I will tell you this. When people ask me, especially the people I work with, why do you spend so much money on junk? Because that's the way they perceive it. My reply is always the same. And I think if you really think about what this means, it'll take foot with it. Why, if you're not willing to invest in yourself, would you expect anybody else to invest in you?
we talk about this all the time. It's important to invest in yourself, whether that's in learning, trying new strategies, challenging yourself, etc. Investing is a sign of commitment. As a manager, it's important to allow your employees to practice this as well. Try not to stifle this investment unless it goes directly against corporate policy or your moral compass.
And his second closing thought?
Yeah, and I know how bizarre it sounds, but it says that you should always sell from the heart.
Another good piece of advice. And when you add up everything that Bill does, from keeping his mission statement in front of himself and keeping his brand, swag, and personality in front of his customers, you come up with an amazing customer service strategy that's a win.
So true. If you're interested in getting a copy of Bill's never-ending delivery kit, go to belesstypical.com/kit and opt in to receive instructions on how to create a never-ending delivery that could double your referrals and increase your repeat business. Go to belesstypical.com/kit and opt in.
Again, a special thank you to Bill Stout of Schofield West Hyundai. For show notes, go to belesstypical.com/019. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. And speaking of episodes, we have another Golden Nugget bonus episode this week.
Our theme song is by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. All episode editing and mixing is done by us, a couple of amateurs learning as we go.
2 items before we sign off. Number 1, please take a moment to share our show with your friends, family, and coworkers. Sharing is caring, and we appreciate your support. Number 2, if you or anyone you know are conducting car sales in a less typical way, please reach out to us. We want to hear your story, and there's a chance you could be featured on an upcoming show. Send me an email so we can connect. My email address is patrick@belesstypical.com.